In a dark forest, a blonde-haired knight looks down at his injured leg, which has been pierced by a few sharp needles. He tries to move but can't feel his leg. Another knight comes running toward him, looking scared. The first knight asks him where the others are, realizing that only this knight has returned. The second knight, looking terrified, says that they're all dead, killed by a man wearing an animal skull, looking like a local warrior. The first knight can't believe it, saying that their group was strong, with everyone at high levels. But suddenly he watches in horror as needles pierce into the second knight's head, and a moment later, the knight explodes. Shocked and angry, the first knight gets to his feet and yells into the darkness, demanding to know who this deadly warrior really is. Flames rage around a massive castle, filled with fallen warriors scattered across the grounds. Only one remains standing, Demian, known as the Combat God, a warrior at level 904 and ranked first in PvP. Despite his severe injuries, he holds his ground, staring down the monster before him. Suddenly, multiple status effects begin to hit him, weakening his abilities. Demian feels confused, wondering if the game could really have this many effects. Blood spills from his mouth as he realizes that not even Saint Magnus or the great Tao God could heal him now. He lets out a weary sigh. At that moment, another warrior steps forward, observing Demian with a smirk. It's King Arthur, the leader of the attack force against the Demon King. He remarks on Demian's persistence, almost mocking him. Enraged, Demian lunges at King Arthur, but Arthur raises his staff and strikes him with lightning. Demian cries out as pain courses through him, and a critical notification appears, warning that his health is dangerously low and that he will soon be logged out. King Arthur blocks the attack, but he notices someone else gathering mana. It turns out to be the Lord of the Abyss, preparing to unleash his own power. Annoyed, Arthur remarks that things were just getting interesting and asks why the Lord of the Abyss dares to interfere. The Lord then releases his ultimate attack, causing massive destruction. Afterward, Arthur walks over to Demian and tells him that every human has their place. He punches Demian in the stomach, then stomps on him multiple times, saying it's a fatal mistake for trash to dream of becoming a hero. Demian, barely clinging to life, looks up at Arthur's disdainful expression, wondering where it all went wrong. About 10 years ago, the world's first virtual reality game, Arceus Chronicle, also known as AC, was released. Its realistic graphics and lively NPCs attract countless players. The main event, the Demon King invasion, becomes legendary, allowing players who clear it to be hailed as heroes of AC. They gain the authority to form their own nations within the game and receive priceless rewards. Because of this, many players dedicate their lives to AC, and Demian is one of them. He spends 10 years immersed in the game, ignoring his family's attempts to stop him. For Demian, AC is a sanctuary from his troubled life. In AC, Demian meets King Arthur, whose real name is Young Yuman. Yuman, a descendant of the goddess Arya, has a rare skill called Infinite Circle, giving him unlimited mana. With his kindness and charisma, he leads a powerful team. Thanks to him, they reach the dungeon of the Demon King's palace. Demian struggles on the floor, trying to move closer to King Arthur, who looks down at him with contempt. Arthur tells him that he still needs people like him in this world. It was only thanks to Demian that he managed to clear the dungeon and kill the Demon King. At that moment, Demian realizes that this has been Arthur's plan from the start. Arthur raises his weapon and strikes toward Demian's head, sneering that he can finally die, as he never liked him from the beginning. Despair floods Demian. He understands he's going to die here at the hands of a traitor, without achieving anything. Just then, he hears a voice asking if he desires revenge. From the darkness, smoke begins to rise, and he stretches his hand toward it. The voice speaks again, declaring that in the name of Abraxas, the ancient evil and Lord of the Abyss, Demian will take on the work of the ancient evil by killing Arya, the goddess of light, and returning chaos to the world as Demian the Avenger. In that instant, Arthur's weapon descends again, aiming to kill him with a single blow. But in the next moment, Demian jolts awake, glancing around in confusion, realizing he's back in his room. Soon after, Jinsung's younger brother Jinhoon bursts into his room, telling him to hurry up and come eat. Jinsung, known as Demian in the game world, blinks in surprise, taking in Jinhoon's appearance. His brother, who should be a commissioned military officer by now, stands there in a high school uniform, looking far younger than he should. Noticing Jinsung's confusion, Jinhoon frowns, snapping at him. He reminds Jinsung that he was the one who asked to be woken up early because he had to leave soon. Without waiting for a reply, Jinhoon tells him to hurry up and eat breakfast before storming out of the room. Still disoriented, Jinsung glances around his room, searching for answers, and his eyes fall on the calendar. The date reads July 28th, 2020. Stunned, he realizes that it's 2020. This is the day before Arceus Chronicle's open beta release. His heart races as he wonders if he's somehow gone back in time. Jinsung sits at the breakfast table, eating so quickly that both his mother and Jin-hoon look on in surprise, wondering what's wrong with him. Overwhelmed with emotion, Jin-sung savors the home-cooked meal, realizing how long it's been since he's had something like this. He can't help but compliment his mother on the food, feeling a wave of nostalgia wash over him, as if he's returned to his childhood. While he eats, he glances at the TV and sees an advertisement for Arzia Chronicle. Jin-hoon, intrigued, looks over and asks what it is. Jin-sung, caught up in the moment, replies, "It's AC." But Jin-hoon misinterprets him, thinking he's talking about air conditioning. He retorts, asking why Jin-sung is bringing up air conditioning and if he has any idea how high the electric bill will be this month. Jin-sung chuckles and clarifies that he means the name of the game, not air conditioning. After breakfast, Jin-sung bids farewell to his mother, telling her he's heading back to his place. He gets into a taxi and instructs the driver to take him to Gumjeong Station immediately. As he rides, disbelief washes over him. He's gone back 10 years. He glances at the capsule on his phone, which is considered top of the line, feeling grateful it isn't just a fossilized piece of junk. This is the period when Jin-sung was at his lowest. After his dad fell ill, he worked day and night to support his family. Overwhelmed by the burden of being the head of the household, he eventually ran away into the game, severing ties with his family, a decision he could never forget. Just then, a system notification pops up before him, declaring that the OVO system has been activated. A countdown begins, warning that if he fails to log into the game, it will lead to his death. Stunned, Jin-sung realizes that he hasn't even registered yet. Suddenly, he begins to hear a chorus of demonic words echoing in his mind, and a sharp headache pierces through his thoughts. He can't shake the feeling that he has heard those words before. Jin-sung finds himself at the Evertail building, the hub for the virtual reality operating systems. He approaches the receptionist, who greets him with a smile and asks if he's looking for the highly anticipated product that's about to be released. She informs him that every capsule at their main branch must be ordered through their reservation system. When she offers him the chance to take a customization test, Jin-sung waves it off, saying he doesn't care about customization. He just wants to see the capsule that's being released today. The receptionist nods and leads him to a refurbished capsule that another customer had reserved but later canceled, which they are currently using for display purposes. Jin-sung looks it over, then hands her his card, stating that he wants to buy the capsule. The receptionist is taken aback, her eyes widening in surprise. She wonders aloud if he comes from a wealthy family, impressed by his unexpected willingness to make such a purchase. Jin-sung registers into the capsule, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling within him as he thinks about his nearly empty bank account. But it's too late to dwell on that now. He needs to focus on finally checking the system window and understanding how he got sent back in time. He recalls the demonic words he heard earlier, the unmistakable voice of the Demon King, Abraxas. As the synchronization completes and he prepares to be sent into the game, a series of red notifications suddenly floods his screen, causing his heart to race. Meanwhile, at Evertail headquarters in San Francisco, California, the top-secret department known as Oracles is in chaos. The entire system is displaying urgent warning signs, and Operator Chloe stands frozen in shock. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she quickly informs her colleagues about the code black alert, her voice laced with urgency. The staff buzzes with confusion, all wondering what could have triggered such an alarm as they scramble to respond. Chloe turns to Kim Hyokjin, the head of the Oracle department, who rushes over with a concerned expression. He asks how long the system has been malfunctioning. Chloe replies that it just happened suddenly, and they still have no idea what caused it. Her concern deepens as she warns that they might lose all control. The Akashic Records protocol to block the mainstreams is accelerating faster than anticipated. The mainstream is the process used by Hyper AI and the Akashic Records to create the game, but there's still much about it that remains undiscovered. Master Hyok and the Oracle team have consistently monitored the system, knowing that a single mistake could lead to a catastrophic crash for both the system and the entire game. As they watch the Akashic Records nearly overtake the mainstream, Master Hyok turns to Operator Chloe, instructing her to abandon control of the mainstream. They cannot afford to let the game collapse completely. With urgency, he presses a button, releasing the Akashic Records control rights. The protocol that blocks the mainstream is halted, and the mainstream is activated once more. Meanwhile, Jin-sung successfully logs into the game as Demian and finds himself on Whispering Island. Memories of betrayal flash through his mind as he recalls young Yuman's treachery. Fueled by determination, he vows to deal with Yuman once and for all. As he takes in his surroundings, however, confusion sets in. He looks around, realizing he isn't starting in the beginner village as expected. Suddenly, a system notification pops up before Jin-sung, outlining several conditions he must now adhere to. The first states that if he fails to log into the game within a week, it will result in his death. The second condition warns that if his character dies in the game, he will die in reality as well. Finally, If his avatar fails to achieve a designated goal within a set time frame, he will also face death. As the gravity of these conditions sinks in, his sensory limits are released, heightening his awareness of the game world around him. But that's not all. A final mission flashes before him. He must ascend as the Demon King within 10 years. With that mission comes a class designation, Voodooist. Jinsung stares at the screen in disbelief, wondering what kind of class that even is. Demian, upon receiving the Voodooist class, feels a peculiar unease settle within him. Voodooists are not typical wielders of magic. They are bound to ancient forces, enigmatic and unsettling, with a deep connection to the realms of curses, poison, and the delicate boundary between life and death. When he checks his stats, his suspicions only deepen. The numbers before him are bizarre and chaotic, with unusual attributes reflecting the Voodooist's mastery over lethal, sinister attacks. Poison damage appears heavily boosted, and there are hints of skills that can summon curses, debilitate foes, or even manipulate the undead. Yet these abilities do not sit right with Demian. He had always gravitated toward more straightforward classes. As if sensing his reluctance, an unexpected message flashes in his system. Warning, you have committed a crime. Your propensity is extremely low. A closer look reveals something impossible. His propensity has plummeted to the negative multiple billions. It's an absurd number, one that should only be possible for someone who has committed unimaginable atrocities, perhaps even killed 1 billion people. Demian stares at his stats in disbelief. The sheer scale of it makes him wonder if it's some glitch in the game, an error in the system. He imagines how people might view him now, a demon king in disguise, a cursed being destined for destruction. The idea of disguising himself crosses his mind. Perhaps concealing his face could at least protect him from unwanted attention. Later, Demian finds himself in the village of Dunbarton, his face hidden under a makeshift disguise, a paper bag with small holes cut for his eyes. As he steps into the quest building, he's greeted by Chief Elmore, a wiry, sharp-eyed elder who seems taken aback at Demian's peculiar appearance. The old man raises an eyebrow, clearly puzzled, but Demian, not wanting to reveal the real reason, mumbles that he's covering his face because it looks cool. Beneath the bag, Demian flushes with embarrassment. If not for the mandatory quest requirement, he certainly wouldn't be here wearing a paper bag on his head. Chief Elmore, after a moment of silence, shakes off his surprise and describes the task awaiting Demian. The nearby Whispering Island, a place known for its eerie ambiance, is swarming with chicks. Elmore explains that their relentless feeding has left the barns almost empty, creating a critical shortage for the villagers. Demian's task is simple, though unusual. He must eliminate 10 of these chicks to help restore balance to the village's stores. In the rugged mountains behind Dunbarton Village, Demian crouches low, hidden among the dense underbrush, eyeing a small chick that busily pecks at the ground. With steady focus, he aims and exhales sharply, sending the dart spiraling through the air. It strikes the chick precisely, and within seconds the poison takes effect, causing the tiny creature to collapse lifelessly. Demian watches, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and exhaustion as he sees his progress reflected in the quest log. His stamina, however, is alarmingly low, reduced to a mere 1. Gasping for breath, he pauses to check his stats and skills again, hoping for some way to make his task easier. For now, he only has access to the basic poison attack. His remaining skills are locked, waiting to be unlocked at level 10. Despite the frustration, Demian resolves to continue. In the sleek, high-tech offices of the Yushin Group, young Yuman leans back in his chair, a faint smile playing on his lips as he reviews the results of his recent game simulation. To him, the game feels like it has the potential to shake up the entire VR gaming industry. A staff member approaches, relaying the news he's been waiting to hear. The VR capsules sold out nationwide on the very first day, with demand only rising. Just then, his phone rings, pulling him from his thoughts. On the other end, a voice informs him that everything he needs for his in-game venture has been prepared. The Yushin Group has equipped him with a perfectly tailored class, handpicked for his playstyle, along with an optimized leveling strategy, essential items, and premium equipment. Hearing this, Yuman's smile broadens. It's all in place. The stage is set for him to enter this new world and leave his mark on it. As the fourth son of Yushin Group's CEO, Yuman has always been positioned for success. But he's made his own reputation as a pro gamer under the moniker King Arthur. Back in the world of Arcia Chronicle, his breath steadying as he surveys the aftermath of his hunt. The final chick lies motionless at his feet, marking the completion of his quest. Almost immediately, a notification flashes before him. He's reached level 2. Along with this milestone, he's awarded 5 stat points, a generous reward that catches him off guard. Typically, a level up grants only 2 stat points, while 3 is reserved for particularly rare or powerful classes. Perhaps this voodooist class, shrouded in ancient magic and poison skills, isn't the curse he once thought it to be. The unique perks might hold the key to something powerful. As he closes the stat window, a dark determination settles over him. This second life has brought him unexpected challenges and setbacks. Demian runs along the road at an incredible speed, so fast that he shocks a passerby who can't believe what he's seeing. Just then, a flock of noisy poultry birds rushes by, following closely behind Demian. Demian continues running and speeds past a group of guys up ahead. After running at full speed for what felt like ages, Demian finally slows down, gasping for breath. Exhaustion is catching up to him, and he begins to wonder if he's overdone it. Looking around, Demian scans the area for a spot to gather the birds. He eventually spots a place that seems perfect for herding them into a manageable group. Carefully, he rounds up the noisy, fluttering poultry into a small mob, organizing them so he can defeat them efficiently. With his target in place, he braces himself, ready to use the birds as his source of EXP. As the hen is defeated, he feels a rush of energy as his EXP meter rises. He finally reaches level 9. Excited, Demian sets his sights higher, thinking of the new skills he'll unlock once he levels up. While he's deep in thought, eagerly anticipating his next step, a sudden system notification pings in his mind. The message appears, "You have gained 1 EXP due to combat interference." Meanwhile, in a nearby part of the forest, a group of 5 players had started their own quest to gain experience by hunting hens. They quickly discovered a valuable trick. The hens had only 1 HP, making them easy targets for quick EXP gains. None of them knew who originally clued them into this discovery, but they were grateful, feeling as if they had stumbled upon a hidden secret. To them, it was like someone else's strategy always seemed better, and they gladly took advantage of the opportunity. Among them was a player named Minjiang, who was particularly thrilled. As they continued to defeat the hens, Minjiang's EXP meter ticked steadily upward until he finally reached level 7. He shared his excitement with the others, speculating that if they kept leveling up this way, they might even break into the ranks of top players someday. Demian appeared unexpectedly on the scene. Acting quickly, Demian rushed forward and struck Minjiang with a powerful hit. The impact of the blow caused Minjiang's status to change, and a system notification flashed. Status effect: faint. Minjiang's character wobbled, and for the next 5 seconds, he found himself unable to control his avatar, helplessly watching as Demian took charge. Minjiang's friends gather around him, trying to help him recover. Demian watches them closely, determined to know if they're responsible for the hens he was counting on for his quest. The players deny any involvement, but Demian's gaze shifts to the scattered bodies of defeated hens littering the ground, confirming his worst suspicions. A surge of anger builds within Demian as he realizes that they've taken not only his targets, but also the valuable EXP he needed to level up. His intentions are unmistakable. Demian won't let them off easily. The players, however, stand their ground. They don't believe Demian has any special claim to the hens, and seem willing to challenge him rather than back down. In an instant, Demian surges forward, launching an attack. The players, unprepared for his speed and power, find themselves quickly overwhelmed. Each hit lands with surprising force, sending shockwaves through the group. They struggle to retaliate, realizing too late that he's much stronger than they expected. Stumbling back, the players exchange bewildered glances. As Demian continues his relentless assault, a shared sense of unease spreads among them, and they start to wonder who exactly this mysterious player is. When one player, Dongchol, finally falls under Demian's relentless attacks, the remaining players receive a chilling system notification of his death. Shocked and terrified, they scramble to run, realizing that they might be dealing with a chaos user. As they bolt through the forest, Demian quickly casts a poison spell. Before they can escape, the venom takes hold, weakening them almost instantly. In the midst of the chaos, Demian notices that one player is missing. His gaze sweeps across the forest, searching for any sign of the escapee. Meanwhile, the missing player hides nearby, his heart pounding as he watches the scene unfold. He knows he has a chance to log out, but only if he can hold out for 300 more seconds. But just as hope rises within him, Demian's eyes catch sight of his hiding place. Another poison spell flies through the air, striking him before he can make it far. After the intense fight, Demian collects his hard-won rewards. From the defeated players, he gathers 58 yellow feathers, 47 white feathers, and 47 low-grade HP potions. The successful hunt pushes him to level 10, unlocking a set of powerful new abilities: Reanimation, Bloodthirst, Decaying Potion, and Voodoo Doll. Excitement surges through him as he realizes he now has access to these formidable skills. Eager to try them out, Demian clicks on his new Poison Dart skill. But as he does, a beep sounds in his interface, alerting him to an unexpected message. The notification informs him that he has just committed a player kill, causing his propensity to drop by 1. His current propensity now sits at the lowest possible level. Confused but intrigued, Demian briefly wonders how his propensity could have fallen any further, though he feels a certain thrill at starting from the bottom. Along with the notification, he receives a new title, Absolute Evil. He examines the title's effects, noting with interest how it amplifies his PK abilities, granting him additional advantages. Reading through the effects, Demian notices some characteristics that feel almost like an exploit, allowing him to bypass certain constraints. Demian enters the convenience store and quickly fills his basket with all kinds of food. The store attendant watches in surprise at the large amount of food. After ringing up everything, the attendant decides to let Demian have it at a discount, telling him to just buy him a drink another time. Demian is thankful and prepares to leave with his bags full. Just as he is about to step out, a news segment on the store's TV catches his attention. The headline announces that Young Yuman has decided to leave traditional gaming behind. Young Yuman has declared his interest in virtual reality games and has chosen Arzia Chronicle as his next challenge. Watching the news, Demian feels the weight of what's ahead. Young Yuman is about to enter Arzia Chronicle with every advantage possible. In the nearby forest outside Dunbarton Village, Demian is seen taking down yet another hen. Reaching level 15, he's aware that there's no time to waste if he wants to stand a chance. Opening his system window, Demian reviews his next quest, an epic mission on Whispering Island. The task is to defeat a mutated wild boar and collect its hide. In return, he'll earn Elmore's recommendation letter, which will allow him to access a new area. He remembers that the wild boar is known to move constantly, making it difficult to locate. If he misses the chance to spot it by noon, he'll have to wait another hour for it to spawn again. Soon enough, his vigilance pays off as he spots the boar in a thicket ahead. However, it's no ordinary creature. The system identifies it as a level 30 elite monster. Demian's initial excitement gives way to caution. He knows that even the smallest mistake could be deadly against a creature this powerful. In the game, monsters are categorized into 4 types: normal, elite, famed, and champion. Monsters of elite rank and above possess unique traits that make them formidable opponents. These traits fall into 3 categories: offense, defense, and buffs. Knowing this, without hesitation he charges at the boar, aiming to test its strengths and weaknesses. He hurls a decaying potion at the beast, causing a burst of noxious energy on impact. But instead of damaging it, the boar merely appears irritated, shaking off the effects with ease. Enraged, the boar retaliates by charging at him with a powerful shove. Demian narrowly sidesteps, dodging the attack with quick reflexes. Realizing the creature's resilience, he throws another decaying potion, hoping to gauge its defenses further. The boar reacts violently, shaking its head in frustration but remaining unharmed. As Demian engages the mutated wild boar, he quickly realizes that the creature is not immune to physical attacks. This revelation gives him hope. Moreover, the absence of a protective barrier suggests it has no additional defenses. Demian notices that the decaying potion is beginning to take effect, causing the boar to stagger slightly. Suddenly, the wild boar charges at him with a wild fury. Demian skillfully dodges the attack, his heart racing as he anticipates the creature's next move. The boar then unexpectedly creates a wall formation, preparing to launch a devastating attack. In that moment of desperation, he activates his zombification skill. This ability allows him to transform into an undead creature when his health is about to reach 0. He feels the change wash over him, his health remaining at a minimum of 1 for the next 600 seconds, and the cooldown for zombification is a lengthy 1800 seconds. Demian stands resolute, his expression twisted with fury as he locks eyes with the wild boar. The intensity of his rage seeps into the atmosphere, making the wild boar hesitate momentarily. Demian continues his relentless battle against the wild boar, stacking both bleeding and poison effects on his target. While Demian, fully aware of his limited time, notices the zombification timer ticking down with only 10 seconds remaining. Confident that this is just enough time to finish the fight, he activates his plague aura. As the zombification countdown continues, Demian's focus remains razor-sharp. With each strike, he watches the wild boar weaken further, calculating his moves to ensure a swift victory. Just as the countdown nears its final seconds, he lands a decisive blow, defeating the wild boar with 2 seconds left on the timer. A surge of EXP flows into his character, propelling him up to level 16. The countdown reaches 0, and the zombification effect fades, leaving him as his usual self, free from the undead aura. Moments later, the system displays a series of notifications. Demian has acquired the wild boar's molar, hide, and essence, as well as a hefty 30,000 gold reward. After defeating the wild boar, Demian receives a surprising notification. he has attained the title, One Who Slayed the Boar Solo. Along with this achievement, he learns that he has successfully cleared the Whispering Islands Predator quest. Shock washes over him, as he didn't expect to complete the quest so effortlessly. Excitedly, he realizes that he has earned all the spoils from the quest, and with the title comes additional benefits: increased strength, movement speed, and resistance. Feeling empowered by his achievements, Demian reflects on what to do next. Just as he is lost in thought, he notices a man standing nearby. The man appears out of place, claiming to be an otherworld adventurer who died and returned to life. Demian feels a sense of confusion. He doesn't recognize this man at all. He asks for the stranger's identity. It reveals that this mysterious old man has lived for eons, and although he is human, his exact age and level remain unknown, suggesting that ignoring him could lead to dire consequences. Demian stands in confusion, unsure of what is happening around him. Suddenly, the old man places his hand gently on Demian's forehead. Demian pulls back and asks the old man what he is trying to do. The old man explains that the small rune on Demian's forehead signifies that he is an otherworld adventurer. He calmly tells Demian that he knows where his power comes from: the darkness. Demian feels a jolt of shock. How does this old man know about the source of his power? The old man continues, revealing that Demian's connection to darkness is what transforms him into an undead being. The old man, Chiron, is curious about how someone like Demian, an otherworld adventurer, manages to harness the secret darkness of the Demon King. Intrigued, Demian asks the old man how he knows about this. Chiron smiles and replies that it is easy for him to know since the truth is right in front of him. At that moment, Demian receives a notification from the system, indicating that new information has been updated. His heart races with anticipation as he opens the NPC information. The description explains that Chiron is an agent of the forgotten god, Shaka, and the leader of the Church of Darkness. Demian reads on, learning that Chiron has lived for eons and is currently searching for someone who can bring down the almighty god, Arya. He hesitates for a moment, then asks Chiron if he is part of a specific culture or belief system. He tells Demian that he is the priest who serves the seventh god, Shaka. His purpose, he explains, is to drag down the abominable gods and spread the news of the end of times throughout the lands. Despite Chiron's revelations, Demian remains unsettled and does not like the old man's presence. This reaction ignites a spark of anger in Chiron, who suddenly shifts from a calm advisor to an aggressive figure. Demian is taken aback. He cannot comprehend why Chiron would choose to attack him so suddenly. In a split second, Chiron launches an attack towards Demian. Reacting quickly, Demian manages to dodge the strike just in time, but the force behind it sends shockwaves through him. He can feel the intensity of Chiron's power, leaving him both amazed and frightened. What kind of destructive force is this old man wielding? Chiron, on the other hand, is astonished that Demian could evade his attack. This only fuels his determination to teach Demian a lesson. Chiron believes that Demian cannot possibly dodge every attack he throws. A notification from his system grabs his attention. It alerts him that Chiron is showing hostility, marking the beginning of a main quest. This quest requires Demian to survive against Chiron, the agent of Shaka, the forgotten god. The system emphasizes that while there are rewards for completing this challenge, he cannot forfeit the quest. He wonders why the system has categorized this encounter as a main quest. He knows that main quests are typically reserved for only a select few players, known as users, and are considered crucial to the game. These quests have the potential to alter the future of the world within the game. Curiosity swells within Demian as he contemplates Chiron's connection to this main quest. Before he can ponder this further, Chiron's voice cuts through his thoughts. Chiron expects him to take action instead of merely thinking. Despite Chiron's taunts, Demian is acutely aware of one undeniable truth. Chiron is not just an ordinary old man. He recalls another mainstream he encountered back when he held the title of the Combat God. That quest had tasked him with taking down Abraxas, the Demon King. Alongside the Six Masters, he had ventured into the abyss. They had fought through every layer of darkness. In the end, they had faced Abraxas in a brutal battle that pushed each of them to their limits. The stakes had been clear. If they had failed, Middle-earth would have been overrun, and countless lives would have been lost. He realizes that if this encounter with Chiron is also a mainstream quest, he cannot afford to fail. Chiron sees Demian lost in thought and believes he's foolishly let his guard down, thinking him an easy target. Before Chiron can strike, however, Demian activates his bloodthirst skill, a move that requires no thought, only pure instinct. Meanwhile, Chiron hurtles forward, his hands crackling with intense light, ready to unleash a devastating blast upon Demian. A huge explosion rocks the battlefield, sending debris flying everywhere. Chiron stands, visibly angry as he watches Demian dart around, skillfully dodging attacks. Demian is in awe of Karen's immense power, feeling both fear and respect for him. After using a technique called zombification, Demian can see Karen's movements more clearly than before. However, he is still taken aback by the explosive strength Karen displays. Demian realizes that his only option is to survive, so he focuses on buying himself some time. To his shock, Karen unleashes a dark magic attack, wondering aloud if Demian can escape it. With a swift gesture, he sends the powerful spell hurtling toward Demian. Another massive explosion erupts, blasting everything in the surrounding area. When the dust settles, Demian is seen kneeling on the ground, looking exhausted and battered. Karen, surveying the aftermath, comments with a hint of admiration that Demian is quite sturdy, impressed that he can still withstand such devastating force. Soon after the zombification skill fades away, Demian receives a notification indicating that he has successfully cleared Karen's test. Feeling a rush of adrenaline, he looks up at Karen and replies that he has been given this chance, so he must survive by any means necessary. Karen responds with a smirk, suggesting that the chance Demian speaks of must be linked to the power of darkness. He reveals that he is fully aware of this because he is the priest of the seventh god, Shaka. This god, known as one of the greatest deities in Arcia, is the Lord of Darkness and the End of Times. Demian's eyes widen in surprise at this revelation. He remembers that the game he played only had 6 gods, but he quickly realizes that the game cannot lie. Karen then leans in closer and asks Demian if he wants to become stronger. He explains that he has heard that adventurers from other worlds often desire rapid growth and immense power. With a serious tone, Karen offers Demian the opportunity to become his disciple if that is what he truly wants. Demian, however, firmly rejects Karen's offer. Karen's face twists in rage as he smacks Demian on the head, scolding him. He declares that the authority of Lord Shaka is unfathomably powerful and vast. Karen insists that if Demian becomes his disciple, he could one day dream of achieving godhood. In response, Demian retorts that he cannot simply become a disciple without any evidence to support such a claim. Sensing Demian's doubt, Karen reveals a book, which turns out to be the Black Pledge Tome of the End of Times. As Demian examines it, he receives a notification stating that the main encounter with the seventh god has occurred. Karen explains that this book is a divine item, the only means by which Demian can contact Lord Shaka. He urges Demian to open the book and stay where he is, but before Demian can respond, Karen knocks him out. When Demian regains consciousness, he finds himself in an unfamiliar place. As he looks around, he spots a small boy who approaches him with curiosity. The boy examines him closely and exclaims that Demian has a nice familiar scent. He then asks if Demian would like to be his friend, claiming he has many friends and can introduce them to Demian. To prove his point, the boy shows off dozens of small chicks, presenting them as his friends. Feeling a sense of warmth and excitement, Demian agrees to become the boy's friend. As soon as they shake hands, Demian begins to drift into unconsciousness. Demian suddenly wakes up to find himself back with Karen, who is observing him intently. Anger wells up inside him as he recalls being knocked out earlier. He feels frustrated and wants to confront Karen about it, but before he can voice his thoughts, Karen delivers a headbutt, knocking him out once more. After a moment, Demian regains his senses and recognizes the futility of resisting Karen's strength. Understanding that Karen is far more powerful, he decides to lay low and submit to him for now. Karen then inquires if Demian had a conversation with Lord Shaka. Demian remembers the small boy from his earlier experience, and shares that Shaka had simply asked him to be his friend. Karen reacts with excitement, explaining that since Shaka has chosen Demian as a friend, it signifies that Demian is the true heir. Karen emphasizes that all Demian needs to do is follow Shaka's lead. Demian receives a notification indicating that he has completed the main encounter quest with the seventh god. This new achievement sparks a sense of accomplishment within him. Karen motions for Demian to move closer, preparing to share their plans for the future. He begins to explain the history of the gods in their land. A long time ago, there were 7 gods, among them Arya, the goddess of light and creation, and Shaka, the god of the end of times. Together, they maintained the balance between life and death. Karen continues, describing how Arya grew increasingly fearful of Shaka's destructive power. Concerned that Shaka's authority could overwhelm them all, she convened the other 5 gods to discuss the matter. Despite differing opinions among them, they all recognized the truth in Arya's fears. Ultimately, they made the difficult decision to seal Shaka's power away to protect the realm from his potential destruction. As Karen continues, he explains that although the other gods feared Shaka's power, they also desired it for themselves. Despite being the god of the end of times, Shaka found himself unable to defeat all 6 gods simultaneously and was ultimately overwhelmed. However, he managed to preserve his divinity, falling into an eternal slumber after entrusting his legacy to his descendant. In the aftermath of Shaka's defeat, the memory of the seventh god faded from the minds of the people. With Shaka gone, the six gods felt a sense of relief, believing there was no longer any threat to their power. But soon, demons began to run rampant throughout the world. With Shaka absent, those who could not accept the reality of death turned into the demonic species, refusing to face the end of times. Demian listens intently, realizing that he had initially viewed Shaka as the root of all darkness. However, he now understands that Shaka was, in fact, the critical axis for maintaining order in the realm. Karen reveals that for thousands of years, he has wandered across countless continents, driven by the mission to revive Shaka, the one true god he serves. To accomplish this, he seeks a formidable power capable of defeating Arya and the other gods. In Demian, he believes he has finally found what he is looking for. Karen declares that Demian will become his disciple and Shaka's sword, tasked with the monumental responsibility of finding and eliminating all the descendants of the six gods, including Arya of Light. As Karen outlines this daunting quest, Demian considers his own motives for revenge. He realizes that his desire for vengeance aligns perfectly with this mission, particularly since Jung Yumin is a descendant of Arya. The weight of the quest becomes clear to him. Reviving the seventh god and toppling the other six gods is no small feat. Yet, he thinks that completing such an undertaking could ultimately benefit him. With a newfound resolve, Demian properly greets Karen as his master, accepting his role as a disciple. In doing so, he acquires the title of Agent of Vengeance. Excitement courses through him as he imagines the powerful training that awaits, believing it will enable him to grow stronger at an accelerated pace. To Demian's surprise, Karen prepares to leave without providing him any substantial guidance or resources. He quickly calls out, asking Karen to wait, wondering if he isn't supposed to receive a technique or some form of assistance. Instead, Karen hands him the tome, instructing him that if he needs anything, he can look through it. He adds that Demian should not seek him out unless it is absolutely necessary before vanishing. Once Karen disappears, Demian receives a new quest titled Karen's Wish. Frustration boils within him as he contemplates the daunting task ahead. He wonders how he is supposed to complete this quest without any help. The challenge feels overwhelming, especially considering that the descendants of the six gods are his former companions from their campaign against the demon king of Abraxas. Demian knows that these descendants are not just ordinary warriors. They are among the strongest in the world, each wielding powers that are truly disaster level. He especially thinks of Jung Yumin, the descendant of the goddess Arya, who is hailed as the god of magic after acquiring the infinite circle. Demian finds himself unable to shake the thought of whether he can truly face Jung Yumin and the other descendants during their prime and emerge victorious. Doubts creep into his mind as he reflects on their incredible strength and skills. Yet despite these concerns, he steels his resolve, reminding himself that he has been given a second chance. Demian decides that he will not waste this chance. He is determined to complete Karen's quest, no matter how daunting it may seem. Soon after, Demian receives a notification indicating that he has acquired the Black Pledge Book, an artifact that heralds the end of times. The notification also reveals that new actions have been added, along with some additional categories. However, he notices that several actions are deactivated due to his low level. He is stunned by this development, realizing that the book must be a legendary all-in-one multi-item, a truly overpowered artifact with numerous functions. Intrigued, Demian begins to explore the contents of the book, eager to understand its capabilities. He navigates through its pages, testing some of the new abilities it offers. As he experiments, he manages to create a wild boar mask for himself. This mask not only enhances his stats, but also possesses the ability to intimidate his opponents. Meanwhile, Demian learns that the essence of the wild boar sells for an impressive 500,000 gold on average, which is roughly equivalent to $5,000. While he feels a thrill at the prospect of creating voodooist exclusive items for himself, a sobering thought crosses his mind. If he continues producing items while still poor, he would soon find himself penniless. With this in mind, he decides to take the wild boar hide to the village chief first. When he arrives, the chief is astonished to hear that Demian managed to catch the wild boar all by himself. Impressed by his skills, the chief takes the time to write a recommendation letter for Demian, stating that he is far too talented to remain stuck on this island. The chief instructs him to head to the port located at the east end of the island. There, he can take a boat to the main continent. The chief advises that upon his arrival, Demian should present the letter to the leader of the Adventurer Guild on the mainland, as it could open new opportunities for him. Demian is later seen at the port, enjoying a meal while checking his status progress. He notices that he has reached level 16, but a sense of realization washes over him. He still has a very long way to go in his journey. As he reflects on his progress, he notices the title Agent of Vengeance in his status, a title that seems to push him toward becoming a player killer. Suddenly, a commotion nearby catches his attention. He sees a group of mages, all wearing the same cape, surrounding a new player who is clearly distressed. The mages are demanding that he pay them, displaying a show of intimidation that makes Demian uneasy. Observing the leader of the mages, Demian notes that he must be quite skilled to have taken control of the docks with just 20 men under his command. As the situation escalates, one of the adventurers nearby becomes enraged by the bullying. Fueled by anger, he pulls out his sword and charges at the group of mages, determined to stand up against their harassment. However, the mages retaliate quickly, unleashing bolts of lightning energy that strike the adventurer, leaving him seriously injured. The mage's leader and his companions are about to finish the adventurer off when Demian, acting on instinct, intervenes. In an instant, he springs into action and kills one of the mages. The mages stand frozen in shock, their eyes wide and mouths slightly agape. They can hardly believe what has just happened. Their attention quickly shifts to Demian, who enters the scene wearing a wild boar helmet. The helmet looks fierce and intimidating, with sharp tusks that jut out menacingly. The sight of him sends a wave of fear through the mages, and they instinctively take a step back. Demian scans the group with a serious expression, his presence radiating danger. He demands their money, making it clear that he wants as much as their lives are worth. With an unwavering gaze, Demian emphasizes that they have only 10 seconds to comply if they want to live. The mages look at Demian, baffled by his behavior. They demand to know what he is trying to do, but he doesn't answer. Instead, he begins counting down, his calm and quiet manner unsettling them. As he continues, their confusion turns to anger. Believing he's mocking them, the mages decide to attack, rushing toward him with spells at the ready, determined to finish him off. Just as they are about to reach him, Demian's countdown ends. In an instant, he vanishes from sight, leaving them momentarily speechless. They exchange uneasy glances, trying to process what just happened. Then, one of the mages spots something unusual above. He gasps, pointing to the sky, and calls out to the others. When they all look up, a brilliant light descends from the heavens, rapidly growing brighter. The light is so intense that it starts to affect their vision, burning into their eyes and overwhelming their senses. However, amidst the chaos, one mage stands apart from the rest. Though surrounded by the same light, he appears unaffected, his vision clear. He watches in silence, trying to make sense of the strange phenomenon. After a moment, Demian reappears in the middle of the confused and weakened mages. Unseen by them, he had set up a ruthless combination of attacks while he was out of sight. He had planted bloodthirst poison darts and scattered decaying potions throughout the area, each one strategically placed to inflict maximum damage. The effects were amplified thanks to his newly earned Agent of Vengeance title, which boosted his player versus player (PvP) damage. Satisfied, he grins, realizing he has managed to take down a whole group with a single calculated plan, a result even better than he had hoped. One of the mages, however, is not impressed. He glares at Demian with hatred, refusing to back down. Meanwhile, Brian and Wendy are elsewhere. Wendy looks at Brian with concern, asking if he is okay. Brian, wincing in pain, seems disoriented and confused. He glances around and asks Wendy where they are, having no memory of how he ended up in this place. Slowly, his mind clears, and he recalls the events with the mages, remembering the suffering they had inflicted on him. Rage flashes in his eyes as he declares his intent to get revenge. Clenching his fists, he demands to know where those mages are, eager to confront them. But Wendy steps in, sensing the danger in Brian's fury. She gently tries to calm him down, urging him to let go of his anger. She points out that he is alive and safe, which is more important than any revenge. Brian takes a deep breath and turns to Wendy with a serious look in his eyes. He asks her a question that has been weighing on him. When do you think a streamer truly dies? Or when do they really lose everything, even their items? Is it when they're forced back to level 1? Then he pauses, answering his own question. He tells her that a streamer truly dies only when they stop playing, when they give up for good. Just as he speaks, a brilliant light flashes nearby, catching both their attention. They turn and see that the light is coming from the mages gathered in a distant field, facing off against Demian. Demian is already locked in battle with the defiant mage who had challenged him earlier. The mage, struggling to defend himself, calls out to the remaining mages, urging them to join forces and cast their spells at Demian. The surviving mages begin chanting, their combined magic filling the air with an ominous hum. Demian sees their magic gathering and smirks, already planning his next move. He prepares to activate his bloodthirst skill again. In a synchronized strike, the mages unleash a powerful blast of magic toward Demian. The spells collide in a dazzling explosion, crackling with elemental energy. For a moment, the mages hope their combined efforts have defeated him. But as the smoke clears, they see Demian still standing, his eyes gleaming with fierce determination. In moments, several of the mages collapse, their bodies lifeless on the ground. The remaining mages stare at Demian, their faces pale with fear and disbelief. They can't comprehend how he's so strong, wondering if he's even human, or if he's reached a level far beyond theirs. The mage who initially led the charge against Demian watches in shock as his comrades fall one by one. Realizing they're cornered and running out of options, the leader of the mages desperately calls out to the others, begging them to buy him just 3 minutes. He needs time. Time to come up with one last-ditch effort to take Demian down. Demian grins slightly, both intrigued and unfazed, aware that he holds the advantage. On the sidelines, Brian watches the fierce struggle between Demian and the mages, his eyes glued to every move. He's utterly captivated by Demian's power, unable to look away. Brian isn't the only one watching the intense battle. His stream has suddenly surged to over 236,142 viewers. When Brian notices the spike in viewership, he's stunned. It's more than he's ever had before. Realizing he has an incredible opportunity to make his mark, he's eager to keep watching, capturing every detail of the epic showdown. However, Wendy stands nearby, clearly uneasy. She doesn't think this is the best use of his time, especially given the risk they're in. But Brian is already imagining interviewing Demian after the fight if he emerges victorious. Meanwhile, back in the battlefield, Demian notices the mage leader focusing intently, seemingly building up a powerful spell. Deciding he won't wait to see what the mage is planning, he moves in quickly to get a closer look, hoping to catch him off guard before he can complete his spell. The other mages, seeing Demian coming, panic and scatter, abandoning the leader in their rush to escape. The leader is left stunned and frustrated, watching his so-called allies flee when they're supposed to be buying him time. He clenches his teeth, but he refocuses, feeling he has finally gathered a fair amount of mana, just enough to unleash a powerful strike against Demian. Demian, however, approaches confidently, his intention clear. He's coming to end this fight, and he plans to do it with his bare hands. The mage leader senses the intensity in Demian's eyes and knows he's only got one shot. He raises his hands and channels all his mana into his enchantment, summoning a crackling storm of lightning. With a final shout, he unleashes the lightning directly at Demian, aiming to obliterate him on the spot. The lightning strikes where Demian stands, and the ground erupts in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves through the area. Lightning strikes Demian, and both Brian and Wendy look on in shock, as does the mage leader, Park Mandu, who believes he has defeated Demian. His fellow mages cheer, praising their leader. But to everyone's surprise, one of the mages is suddenly beheaded. They turn to see Demian, unharmed, remarking casually that the lightning attack stung a bit. He then acknowledges that Park Mandu has decent combat sense and a crafty mind, but adds, with a smirk, that he should have finished him when he had the chance. In a swift move, Demian severs Mandu's arms, taunting him that escape is impossible now, and that his revenge will be thorough. Brian and Wendy are horrified by Demian's ruthlessness as he methodically deals with the mages, sparing Mandu only to torture and heal him repeatedly, dragging out the punishment until he finally kills him, earning a PK. Demian is rewarded with new equipment and over 3 million gold, leaving him stunned by the fortune. He mentally estimates this haul is worth around 40 million won and promptly puts up a request to sell. Buyers flood his messages, and he selects one, completing the transaction and receiving 35 million won in his account. At that moment, Demian realizes that this game might just be his ticket to a brighter future. In Cambridge, Massachusetts, Alan Jacobs, CEO of Switch, the world's leading MCN corporation, sips coffee in his high-rise office. His subordinate informs him that William Ballmer, Switch's COO, is here to see him. William enters, sharing news he recently heard. He first asks if Alan has heard of AC Game. Alan nods, noting it's the latest trend and that many of their streamers play it. William then hands him the week's hottest clip, suggesting that a promising new streamer has surfaced, a potential business opportunity worth exploring. Meanwhile, in AC Game, Demian makes a call to his mother, letting her know he sent some money, claiming it's from a recent bonus. Concerned, she urges him to keep the money for himself, but he reassures her it's only extra cash. After hanging up, Demian contemplates investing the balance. With his knowledge that AC and Evertail will soon boost cryptocurrency value for years, he decides to seize the opportunity. Starting with 3 million won, he invests in cryptocurrency, only to suffer a total loss. Shocked, he's forced to liquidate his holdings and feels as though something's intentionally working against him. Frustrated, he checks the fluctuation charts, finding nothing but losses. Realizing he has no choice, he decides his best bet for earning money now lies solely within AC Game. At Zhongsan Industries factory in Changchun, Jilin Province, China, A worker rushes into the factory office to deliver urgent news. Mingchen, CEO of Yongsun Industries, looks up, questioning why his employee is so flustered that he even slammed the door. Catching his breath, the worker explains he came to report something unusual. Someone is selling 3 million gold in AC game. Mingchen initially dismisses it as a joke, finding the information hard to believe. But the worker insists it's genuine and hands him his phone. When Mingchen sees the listing himself, he's taken aback. He recalls that he's been deeply invested in the AC game industry for the past 15 days, even redirecting all his previous manufacturing resources toward this venture. With significant funding from his network, he bulk purchased Galaxy M24 Apple capsules to fuel their production. Now, this post about selling 3 million gold at cheap rates is surprising and worrisome. Mingchen realizes that this amount far exceeds his company's daily output. He grows concerned that if these large, independent gold sales continue, they might flood the market, driving down the value of AC game gold, something that could seriously affect his business strategy. In a surge of rage, Mingchen smashes his employee's head with a nearby gadget, furious that this critical information hadn't been relayed sooner. The employee, in pain and fear, stumbles to find an excuse, but Mingchen's anger brooks no response. His mind races with the consequences. If independent sellers flood the market with large amounts of gold, Yongsun Industries' valuation would tank, leaving their standing with investors in shambles. Determined to prevent disaster, Mingchen orders the employee to track down the seller's identity and gather detailed information on him. The employee hurries out, beginning the urgent investigation. Meanwhile, Demian, the seller responsible for the market disruption, reclines comfortably on a ship, reflecting on his latest adventure. He recalls the convoluted island landscape and the twists it held, but thanks to Park Mandu's guidance, he had secured substantial loot. Satisfied, he considers that the risks were well worth the reward in the end. Demian checks his system and decides to deconstruct some of his gear. After selecting an item, the system confirms a successful deconstruction, awarding him 8 lowest-grade irons. Thrilled by the result, he realizes that his strategy might earn him even more than the players who remained on the island. Moments later, a notification pops up informing him of earned experience points, EXP, and he advances to level 20, aided by his Absolute Evil title, which accelerates his leveling. He opens his status window to review his progress and notices that he has funneled most of his skill points into Bloodthirst and Decaying Potion. Curious, he checks his other skills but concludes they're currently of limited use. The reanimation skill, for instance, would allow him to summon little more than chickens at this level, and he would still need dolls to fully utilize his voodoo doll skill. Still, Demian feels confident that these skills may prove useful one day. Just as he finishes assessing his abilities, his system alerts him to new location information. He is now at Terra Kingdom's wharf. The world map updates, and Demian gazes at it with interest, recognizing Terra as a major continent filled with potential adventures and opportunities. Upon reaching their destination, Demian disembarks and steps onto the bustling streets of Terra, a kingdom renowned as one of the busiest hubs in Eastern Asia and the heart of the East. The sights around him feel strikingly familiar, but Terra's activity surpasses even his memories. The request system is packed with jobs, from mages to mercenaries, showing a high demand for skilled adventurers, a fact Demian observes with some amusement, as his own potential remains unnoticed for now. As he strolls along the crowded streets, he passes groups advertising various ventures. One set of recruiters calls out for members to join a raid on the Baron Dungeon, specifically requesting healers to lead the charge. Seeing the fervor of the guilds actively recruiting, Demian feels both amazed and intrigued, considering which role he should pursue. Scanning the crowded street, he spots the entrance to the Adventurers Guild, where a long line of applicants awaits their turn. Determined not to waste time, he pushes forward, weaving through the crowd toward the guild's entrance. Inside, Hassan, the leader of Terra Kingdom's Adventurers Guild, instructs an assistant to gather the day's stack of Adventurer Certificate applications. As Demian reaches the front, he calls out Hassan's name confidently, catching the guild leader off guard. Hassan, surprised, looks up to see Demian, a new face with a determined expression and keen eyes that easily notice the name tag on his chest. Recognizing the sharpness in Demian's gaze, Hassan welcomes him, noting that it's rare for newcomers to pick up on such details so quickly. Demian simply responds that keen perception is essential for a successful mercenary, a sentiment that Hassan acknowledges with a nod of agreement. The Adventurers Guild operates across the vast regions of Asia, a trusted intermediary for NPCs and adventurers alike. People come to the guild to place requests, backed by deposits, or to earn money by accepting and completing these jobs. Although it's a popular facility, not everyone fully appreciates or utilizes its resources. Noting Demian's interest in certification, Hassan points out that he'll indeed need one for the work he's considering, and Demian confidently affirms his understanding of the guild's requirements. Seeing a unique quality in Demian, Hassan calls over Maria, one of his messengers, to bring a guild certificate application. When Maria returns with the document, Hassan asks if Demian will register solo or with a team. Demian chooses solo, affirming his readiness to stand alone. Hassan explains that certification involves a smoke test in the arena behind the lobby, where 10 challenging gates determine rank based on how many are cleared. Demian quickly grasps that preparing thoroughly could help him secure a higher ranking. Impressed that Demian is ahead of him in understanding, Hassan suggests he take a few days to prepare. Demian, however, firmly declines the offer, declaring he's ready for the test right now. Hassan looks at Demian with skepticism, questioning his readiness once more. He warns Demian that once he enters the testing grounds, he won't be able to modify his stats. Demian remains unfazed, believing that a test is fundamentally a chance to showcase one's true abilities. Impressed by Demian's confidence, Hassan stands up and instructs him to follow. As they move toward the testing area, Demian's system alerts him that he must demonstrate his skills to successfully pass the Adventurers Guild certification exam and become an active member. Upon reaching the exam location, Hassan bids him good luck and departs, leaving Demian to navigate the bustling crowd of eager adventurers waiting for their turn. As he scans the area, Demian spots the Summon Gate, a stunning creation by Arcus, the master of the magic tower of monsters. Maria, the moderator, steps forward to address the participants. She explains that the testing grounds will materialize once they pass through the Summon Gate. The challenge entails defeating a series of summoned monsters across 10 levels. Maria warns them that if they find themselves unable to progress beyond a certain point, they should shout that they give up. As the participants listen to Maria, someone raises a question about the nature of the monsters they will face. Maria clarifies that the creatures are phantoms conjured by the guild's mages, though they bear a striking resemblance to real monsters. Demian considers this explanation and recognizes it as a practical approach. After all, many requests from the Adventurers Guild revolve around dealing with monsters. Just as Demian absorbs this information, Maria announces the commencement of the exam. He is taken aback, realizing the test has begun without any warning. Panic spreads quickly among the adventurers as they confront the summoned phantoms. The air fills with cries for help, with several participants caught off guard by the ferocity of the attacks. All the participants stand frozen in shock as the moderator, Maria, addresses the crowd. She urges them not to be too frightened, reminding them that the summoned creatures are merely phantoms created through magic. She announces that she will call the next set of applicants shortly. Despite the fear gripping many of the adventurers, Demian remains composed, viewing the test as little more than a warm-up exercise. He knows that his confidence and skill will carry him through. They express their fears, suggesting that the exam feels more like a death sentence than a certification test. Maria, unfazed, explains that the certification exam is designed to challenge them, stating that they must defeat all the summoned monsters to progress to the next stage. She emphasizes that anyone uncomfortable with the guild's testing methods is welcome to leave the arena. With a sweeping gesture, she opens the gate, daring anyone to step back. The fear that once hung in the air begins to dissipate as the applicants consider their options. They realize the stakes involved. After all, this is a game. With a collective understanding that they can respawn after 60 hours should they perish, most decide to stay and face the challenge. Soon after, the applicants step through the summoning gate, bracing themselves for the trials that await them. The exam consists of 10 levels, each populated by monsters that they must defeat to progress. With each victory, the gate to the next stage will open, but those who wish to forfeit midway can simply raise their hands and declare their surrender. However, for solo examinees like Demian, the stakes are higher. Failing to defeat the monsters means automatic disqualification. As the participants gather in the arena, a notification appears, announcing that the next test will begin in 10 minutes. Demian glances around and counts about 10 other applicants, but he doesn't recognize any familiar faces among them. To his surprise, he remembers hearing whispers about the exam, but realizes the examiners never mentioned one crucial detail. Along with defeating the monsters, the Summoning Gate Certificate exam incorporates a battle royale system where participants can engage in combat with each other. He wonders if the examiners intentionally withheld this information to stir tension among the competitors. As the participants discuss strategies in small groups, one applicant stands out, attempting to rally others into forming a coalition. He suggests that if they can clear the last stage together, they could start as silver-ranked adventurers instead of the usual iron rank. Demian observes the man's extravagant gear, which hints at his wealth and experience in the game. The man proudly introduces his party members, claiming they have been playing since the open beta. The guy manages to rally a few players to join his party. their eyes glinting with ambition at the prospect of securing silver ranks. He spots a lone female player standing off to the side, her face obscured by a mask. Intrigued, he approaches her, eager to recruit her for his team. However, she quickly rebuffs him, spitting out some unkind words that leave him taken aback. Undeterred by the rejection, he turns his attention back to the impending challenge. At that moment, the test begins. Goblins start to materialize in the arena, and the guy leaps forward, poised to lead the charge. But before he can make a move, Demian springs into action, already launching an attack on the nearest goblin. His swift movements catch the attention of the other applicants, who are momentarily shocked by his boldness. Demian doesn't hesitate. With a fierce determination, he dispatches the first goblin in a matter of seconds. As he continues his onslaught, he swiftly takes down one goblin after another, demonstrating remarkable combat skills that leave the other players in awe. The first level of the test becomes a one-man show, with Demian single-handedly eliminating all the monsters in record time. He earns 10 points for his efforts, and the announcement rings out that the second stage of the test will commence soon. Meanwhile, the guy who had initially sought to lead the group stands seething in the background. He glares at Demian, convinced that the newcomer is stealing his kills and hogging all the points, accumulating the accolades that he feels should have been rightfully his. He decides that he must confront Demian, ready to accuse him of being a glory hog. However, Demian remains blissfully unaware of the guy's simmering resentment. He intentionally ignores the brewing conflict, focusing instead on the real purpose of the test. To Demian, this exam is not about teaming up or following someone else's lead. It's about showcasing individual skill and proving himself as an adventurer. The guy's frustration simmers as he sees Demian ignoring him completely. Anger surges through him, prompting him to draw his sword, ready to launch an attack. However, Demian anticipates the move and swiftly throws a vial of poison into the guy's face. The impact is immediate. He cries out in pain and swings his sword wildly, desperately trying to regain his sight. Demian expertly dodges the erratic strikes, feeling a surge of amusement at the guy's instinctual fighting style. It's clear that the guy relies on his heightened senses to locate Demian. As the guy struggles to recover, he calls out for help, and one of his party members rushes in to cast a cure spell. This restores his vision and some of his strength. With renewed focus, he plans a counterattack. Just as the guy swings his sword again, Demian sidesteps and reappears behind him, delivering a powerful kick that sends the guy crashing to the ground. Amid the chaos, he notices a young woman in distress, stares in disbelief as Demian seizes her, taking her hostage to assert control over the situation. The fiancé's expression shifts to one of panic, realizing the gravity of what is happening. The guy, now on the ground and fueled by rage, rallies his party members to attack Demian, urging them to kill him and rescue the hostage. The party members hesitate, torn between their loyalty to their leader and the morality of sacrificing an innocent person. In a moment of desperation, the guy's rage erupts. In a ruthless act, he kills the lady's fiancé right in front of her, shocking the remaining party members into silence. With the stakes now raised, the guy charges at Demian, his intent clear. Demian can't help but reflect on how the guy is even crazier than he initially thought. He has encountered many individuals like him, those who would rather be the head of a dog than the tail of a lion. Such people often feel the need to showcase their skills in a bid for recognition and praise. He decides to keep his distance at first, observing the guy as he finally reveals his true nature, no longer able to hide behind a facade. As the confrontation intensifies, the guy unleashes a flurry of sword strikes aimed at Demian. Each swing comes at him with reckless abandon, but Demian nimbly dodges the attacks, his reflexes honed from countless battles. He waits for the perfect moment to retaliate, delivering a powerful kick that connects with the guy's shoulder, sending him staggering back. The blow is impactful, but the chaos doesn't end there. The guy's party members, sensing their leader's distress, begin to unleash their own attacks on Demian. In a split-second decision, Demian sees an opportunity. He pushes the guy into the path of the incoming attacks, allowing the party members to inadvertently strike their own leader. The confusion throws them off balance, and in a swift motion, Demian capitalizes on the moment, eliminating the guy in a single decisive move. However, just as victory seems within reach, Demian notices something unsettling. A feeling of unease creeps over him as he scans the area, his instincts telling him that something isn't right. His gaze falls on the masked lady from earlier, now revealed in her deadly grace. She stands amid the remnants of the battle, her movements fluid and precise as she dispatches the last few applicants. Goldenflower assesses Demian with a calculating gaze, her mind set on eliminating him next. She acknowledges his skills, noting that he is surprisingly competent for someone without any gear, or perhaps he is simply concealing something valuable. In response, Demian counters her observation, pointing out that she too is practically an item hoarder. He recognizes that she is a formidable opponent and prepares himself for the impending confrontation. As he scans the area, Demian spots the sword that the party leader had wielded earlier. He swiftly grabs it, feeling its weight in his hands. Goldenflower notices his actions and raises an eyebrow, questioning whether he even knows how to wield a sword. Demian considers her question and concludes that if she is an assassin, her skills in one-on-one combat must be exceptional, not to mention the lethal synergy she has with her weapon, a sashimi knife that seems perfectly suited for her style. Determined to face her head-on, he braces himself, inviting her to attack. Without hesitation, Goldenflower charges at him, her movements fluid and graceful as she employs the kunoichi skill, Tiger Incisor. The force behind her strike is overwhelming, and Demian manages to block it with the sword he has just acquired. In that moment, Demian can't help but reflect on how fortunate he is to have his titles and equipment. Otherwise, he might have been defeated instantly. As he recovers from the shock of her attack, Demian expresses admiration for her fighting spirit, but notes that her arms lack the necessary strength to truly make her skills effective. Goldenflower stands momentarily stunned by his words, realizing that he successfully blocked one of her most powerful techniques. Frustration flares within her as she processes the unexpected turn of events. Determined to regain control of the fight, she unleashes another skill, Fog Walk. Goldenflower skillfully maneuvers around Demian, her presence elusive as she utilizes her stealth to confuse him. Despite the difficulty of pinpointing her exact location, Demian remains focused, honing in on the brief moments when she reveals herself. With keen instincts, he predicts her attack trajectory, anticipating a strike from above on his right. As she descends, he deftly dodges the incoming assault, his reflexes sharp and precise. In a seamless motion, he counters her attack, launching a retaliatory strike of his own. Drawing on his arsenal of skills, he employs his decaying poison, directing it at her with lethal intent. The moment it makes contact, her gear begins to sizzle and melt, the fabric and metal succumbing to the corrosive substance. Demian locks eyes with her, his expression unyielding as he declares that if she continues to talk, he won't grant her a painless death. He demands that she give him everything she has, insisting that if she complies, he will ensure her demise is swift and devoid of suffering. With a flick of his wrist, he points the sword directly at her, the blade gleaming ominously in the dim light. He sets a countdown, his voice steady and unwavering as he announces that she has 10 seconds to comply. Demian surveys the spoils he has claimed from Goldenflower, noting the exceptional quality of the gear and weapons she possessed. He feels a surge of satisfaction as he recognizes the strategic advantage it gives him. As the countdown for the next test ticks down, the announcement comes that were-rats will be the foes he must face in this stage. Without hesitation, he springs into action, quickly dispatching the 10 monsters that appear before him. Each strike is calculated and efficient, and he earns another 10 points, propelling him forward to the next stage. The anticipation for Stage 3 builds, but Demian decides to forego the waiting period, opting to jump directly into the fray and continue his momentum. Clearing the initial stages proves effortless for him. His familiarity with combat shines through, and he progresses swiftly through the challenges. When he reaches Stage 8, he finds himself facing lizardmen, a tougher adversary than the previous foes. However, the weapons he looted from Goldenflower prove invaluable, allowing him to wield them with remarkable skill. His past experiences in the arena combat mode, known as Gladiator mode, come rushing back to him. Having been the first user to clear Stage 100 in that brutal environment, he recalls how he earned the title of Grand Weapon Master. The title is not just a badge of honor, it symbolizes the countless hours of practice, the blood, sweat, and tears he poured into mastering every weapon available to him. As he navigates the fight against the lizardmen, his movements are fluid and precise, reflecting the absolute dexterity he developed during his time in the arena. With the 8th stage cleared, Demian presses forward into Stage 9 without a moment's pause. Meanwhile, in a distant observation chamber, Maria monitors the ongoing tests through a special orb. She remains composed as she observes the various participants. But when Hassan approaches her with a question about the situation, her response is brief and informative. She assures him that nothing significant is occurring in the test at the moment. Hassan, eager to know if anyone has proven themselves capable enough to warrant immediate employment, presses for more details. Maria, glancing back at the orb, states that if any candidate stood out, she would have already informed him. Hassan's mood darkens as he reflects on the overwhelming number of applicants seeking certificates from the Adventurer Guild. Despite their enthusiasm, few seem capable of meeting the guild's standards. He feels a pang of frustration as he compares them to the mainlanders, who are often more skilled and disciplined. The Adventurer Guild, with its open-door policy, had become a melting pot of varied beings, but the most talented individuals typically gravitate toward the kingdom's prestigious academy or the revered magic tower. This exodus leaves the guild struggling to complete quests that require higher-level skills, intensifying his sense of helplessness regarding their manpower shortage. Amidst his thoughts, Maria's voice pierces through his gloom. There's an unmistakable excitement in her tone as she speaks of a unique applicant among the participants. Hassan's interest peaks. He knows Maria well enough to understand that her acknowledgement of someone's talent is a rare occurrence, given her meticulous nature. Intrigued, he asks how unique this applicant truly is. Maria's eyes light up as she shares her findings. She informs Hassan that, after a shocking incident where 9 players perished in Stage 1, only one survivor remains, Demian. Hassan's eyes widened in disbelief. How could so many players die at the easiest level? It's typically a stage any adult, even without skills, could clear, Maria continues, explaining that this singular survivor has been clearing each stage in an astonishing average time of 2 minutes and 58 seconds. Hassan absorbs this information, his shock deepening. If Demian had managed to clear the stages at such a pace, it meant that he was not just surviving, but thriving. The implication weighs heavily on him. Not only had Demian survived where others had failed, but he had also been responsible for the deaths of those 9 players at Stage 1, who is currently in the middle of Stage 9 and had cleared it, to which he got 10 points. However, he feels that something is not right after hearing the notification. Based on what he remembers from before, Stage 8 has slimes and Stage 9 has skeleton mages, but orc warriors and dark elves come out, making this much more difficult to defeat. The previous stages also seem harder than he remembers. He shrugs it off, feeling that it doesn't matter as long as he gets the rewards. He heads to Stage 10, recalling that the monster he should fight there should be either the Slime King, Mud Golem, or Blood Goblins. Any of them would be a piece of cake. As he enters Stage 10, he is shocked to see a huge minotaur looming over him, completely beyond his expectations. A special notification pops up, indicating that the monster looks and acts like a minotaur, but it's only a phantom created by the summon gate, so he doesn't have to worry and should fight it with all his might. Even though he is surprised, he gets ready to fight the minotaur. Suddenly, he disappears from his spot and reappears behind the minotaur, pouring a decaying potion on it, which reduces its defense as it cries out in agony. The minotaur then charges at him, trying to deliver a powerful punch, which Demian dodges before countering the attack. As Demian fights the minotaur struggles as well. Then, Demian inflicts poison on the minotaur, and suddenly everything crashes. At first, Demian does not understand what is going on, but when he sees that the minotaur is still fighting back, he starts to get fired up, even though it is a life-or-death situation. His heart begins to beat like euphoria, making him think that it must be his fighting spirit. But he doesn't give up. He keeps attacking the minotaur, realizing that the minotaur is tough. Not long after, Demian discovers the minotaur's weakness and immediately targets that weak point, striking it. The minotaur starts bleeding and is already near death. Demian then makes his final attack, defeating the minotaur. That is how the test for Stage 10 is completed, and they begin analyzing the test results, where Demian is said to have earned 10 points. Meanwhile, Demian does not expect to face such a challenge, but he finds that it is not as difficult as he thought it would be, even though he cannot tell how strong he has become in that moment. However, he believes that he has grown remarkably stronger since he first started, and it is almost unbelievable to him how quickly he has improved. He loves this growth and hopes to keep moving forward, becoming even stronger over time. After finishing the analysis, Demian is told that he has earned a total of 100 points for himself, marking the end of the test. He heads back to the reception to meet Hassan. When he arrives, everyone with Hassan is shocked that he came back, but Hassan already expected it. He can see that the test gave Demian a run for his money. Demian lets him know that the test was not that easy though. Hassan thinks to himself as he looks at Demian, noting that he has the fastest summon gate clear time and is in first place for overall combat abilities, situation assessment, and performance. One thing that shocks Hassan is the fact that Demian even killed other participants, making him a hot topic among the guild's employees. This is when Hassan understands why Maria described Demian as a special case. Immediately, Maria shows eagerness, insisting that they should employ Demian, knowing that it is not every day they come across someone like him. Although Hassan recognizes Maria's enthusiasm, he considers that it might not be wise to make a decision right away. But Maria insists that they hire him immediately. Hassan lets Demian know how impressive his test results are, but he expresses concern about how Demian killed other adventurers. Demian replies that he did that because he found the adventurers to be terrible. He can easily discern a person's nature. He explains that it's not like he goes around killing people as a hobby, he just needed to do it then. However, Hassan still feels like he sounds like a criminal with the way he talks. Demian knows he isn't giving Hassan an excuse. He has played the game for a long time and can understand what someone is thinking in the moment. He considers that if Hassan rejects him, his certificate would automatically go down the drain, which is a relief for him. After a while, Hassan tells him that he has figured out he is the type of person who stirs up trouble. He advises Demian that he cannot act the way he did during the test again, as he expects their guild members to have their swords pointed at monsters, not at humans. Demian promises that he will change, but Hassan decides to ask him one question. Is he willing to work as a mercenary under the Adventurer Guild after receiving the guild's certificate? Demian replies gladly that he would be very happy to have that opportunity. Due to that response, Hassan officially welcomes him into the guild as a member, hoping to start working with him. Demian earns the Adventurer certificate, and so his affiliation changes to the Adventurer Guild. Demian is happy that everything worked out. Now that he is a member of the guild, he knows he can get all the news and requests from every continent. Then, his system notifies him of another title he just acquired, Fastest Clear Time. Demian begins to see the differences from when he started until now. He can now earn new titles without any issues. He is asked if he likes the gold tier rank given to him, and he gladly replies that he does. The gold tier rank is awarded to someone who has completed multiple heavy quests over many years, or managed to pass Maria's arduous advancement tests. The more Hassan thinks about this, the clearer it becomes to him that Demian's case is unprecedented. Hassan explains that the gold tier certificate he just earned is equivalent to 19 iron tier adventurers, or even 3 silver tier adventurers. He also lets Demian know that the rank of quests he can take on is quite high as well. Hassan shows him some missions he has already picked out, believing they match Demian's skills, and asks him to choose his first mission wisely among the options. Demian collects the missions and checks through them. He picks one and asks Hassan what it is about. Hassan explains that the mission concerns a village named Cornet, where the sheep have gone missing, prompting the government office to send out a cooperation notice. He explains that Cornet is a remote village, so government officials prefer not to send their precious knights there. Demian realizes that the government would rather deal with the situation using money, which is where the adventurers come in. Hassan informs him that he has heard the village sheep keep disappearing, leading him to think that a pack of wolves must have migrated to a nearby area. The government office hopes to resolve the issue by finding the root of the problem. Demian asks if he can take on that mission, and Hassan gives him permission. Demian considers quests like this to be usually very easy because some people from the same village are probably stealing the sheep. He calculates that if he solves the issue quickly by identifying a probable cause and reporting back, it shouldn't cause any problems. However, Hassan reminds him that no matter how he approaches the situation, he must bring back results that satisfy both the village and the government officials. He asks Demian again if he is still fine with it. Demian replies that he is ready. The system then notifies him of the occurrence of the quest, and he accepts it. He tells Hassan that he will be on his way immediately as he leaves. Hassan wishes him the best, and Demian promises to return early enough. He arrives at a certain place and wonders where the village is located. Just then, his system notifies him of the location, which is at Celis Valley 3, and the world map information updates accordingly. He decides to use the world map to find Cornet Village and discovers that it is situated between Terra, the central area of the east, and the Pharma Principality, known as the Ivory Tower of Truth. Demian realizes that he still has a long way to go when he checks the location. He understands why the government hasn't sent any knights for the quest. It's far away. Then he thinks about how, ever since he accepted the gold tier quest, he hasn't acquired any suitable equipment, let alone party members. It hasn't been long since he started the game, and he realizes that he doesn't have even basic gear, which makes forming a party with mercenaries impossible since they believe that gear is everything. However, he feels it would be better to go alone than waste time trying to find a party. Although it's not that he can't find a party, he simply doesn't want to. Instead, Demian decides to summon a minion. At first, he doesn't realize that the minion has been summoned by him, but since it is there, he considers using the minion, believing that something useless wouldn't just appear. The system prompts Demian to name the minion, but he thinks it unnecessary to name such a useless creature. He asks the minion if it has a name, but when he sees that it doesn't respond, he decides to name it Piley. This is how he summons his first minion, and they set off on their journey together. They arrive at a place known as Celis Valley 6, where Demian thinks there should be a side road. They stop, and as he tries to survey the surroundings, Piley asks him what he is doing. He replies that he is looking for a place. With the help of his system, he discovers they are in the Faber Forest. Looking around, he realizes the area is not well known since it is far from the village, and he thinks it's not worth the hassle he often sees users cause in the system. He observes that the main reason users avoid this forest is because of the monsters that inhabit it. The forest is high up, making it difficult to attack and defend. However, Demian decides to give it a try when he spots a Faber nearby. He aims to kill it and uses his decaying poison skill to attack. Before he knows it, the Faber falls to the ground. The system notifies Demian that the Faber's defense has been afflicted with corrosion, resulting in a reduction of its defensive capabilities. Meanwhile, as Demian fights the Faber, it feels to him like he is simply hitting apples off tree branches. The Faber tries to attack him despite being down, but he counters easily. Its attacks are too slow. He continues to afflict it with poison, watching as the creature groans in pain. Eventually, the Faber succumbs, and Demian considers its remains as meat for himself. He gains experience points, EXP, and acquires the hardened shell, which he knows is a highly sought-after item in the game, though it is not supplied quickly enough to meet demand. Demian is not overly concerned about the EXP. It is the shell that motivates him to come to this place. Many players are interested in the shell, and he knows that demand will only increase over time. He is certain the price will rise, and if he can monopolize the supply, he could become rich. With this goal in mind, he resolves to collect as many shells as he can. He tells Piley it's time to leave the forest and head toward the gold mine. Upon arrival, he encounters 4 more Fabers. He declares that the gold mine will be his turf from now on, and demands the Fabers crawl down and shed their shells if they want to live. Instead of complying, they prepare to fight him, and he gets ready for battle. Using his bloodthirst potion, he assesses their numbers and attack trajectories, then makes quick work of the Fabers, causing their defenses to drop. At one point, all the Fabers calm down, and he expects them to comply, but instead, they simultaneously launch an attack. Demian realizes he has let his guard down. Before he knows it, it's too late to dodge their strikes, and he understands he will get hit if he tries to hide. He thinks through his options and decides it would be better to block their attacks if dodging isn't possible, knowing there must be something that can serve as a shield. As he considers this, his gaze shifts to Piley, who seems to be processing something in his mind. Piley, unaware of why Demian is staring at him, questions his focus. Demian does not reply to Piley. Instead, he begins swinging the minion hard. The Faber's strings start getting tangled in the process, and Demian seizes this moment as an opportunity to start dancing around the battlefield. With newfound agility, he faces each Faber one by one, dispatching them swiftly. Before long, he defeats all of them and reaches level 25. By this point, he feels exhausted. It has been a while since he pushed himself to his limits, and he realizes the importance of maintaining complete concentration during the fight. While he takes a moment to rest, Piley asks him why he threw it earlier. Demian explains that he had to take that risk. If he died, there would be no chance to come back to life. Piley, still angry about being used as a weapon, promises Demian that it will not forgive him for what he did. Just as Demian hoped, he acquires all the hardened shells from the Fabers. 4 of them lay on the ground, and he strikes a deal with Piley. If it helps him pick them up, he will give it 1 seed for every shell collected. Piley confirms whether Demian is sure about the deal, and Demian nods affirmatively. With that, Piley stands up and begins gathering the shells. Demian is pleased. He knows that Piley will be much quicker at this task than he would be on his own. The system then notifies Demian that occasionally a Faber can drop 2 hardened shells. Upon seeing this notification, Demian feels reassured that the risks he took in the battle were worth it. He begins to recognize the cost-effectiveness of his actions. Currently, a hardened shell sells for over 509 gold, and based on his memory, he knows that if the supply volume doesn't change much, the value will likely double soon. Reflecting on this, he realizes that the events unfolding in AC mirror those from his past life. So far, he has managed to defeat a wild boar and clear a summon gate, which gives him confidence in using the knowledge from his previous life to gain an advantage in this one. Since both the Faber and his own level are at 25, Demian concludes that he won't incur any level penalties for farming here. He remembers he had planned to reach Cornet Village in about 4 days at a leisurely pace. However, he decides to adjust his strategy. He'll farm for hardened shells for the next 2 days, and then use the remaining 2 days to make his way to the village as quickly as possible. As he strategizes, Piley, noticing Demian deep in thought, asks why he is talking to himself. Demian, absorbed in his planning, doesn't respond. Finally, he tells Piley that they should focus on making as much money as possible for themselves. Piley readily agrees, excited about the prospect of their new plan. As Demian and Piley continue their plans nearby, the Jungsun Industries Daytime Group 1 makes their way through the Faber Forest. One of the members hears a strange sound, prompting him to alert their leader, Liang Chaoming. Liang confirms he hears it too, but dismisses it. He reassures his team that anyone else in the area will likely perish at the forest's entrance. He doesn't want them to be distracted. They have a long way to go and a quota to meet for the day. Liang is well aware that the Faber Forest is not only hidden, but also perilous for inexperienced users. However, he knows that the hardened shells dropped by Fabers are key revenue items for Jungsun Industries. Despite their value, he acknowledges that hunting the Fabers is no easy feat. As they venture deeper into the forest, Liang's group struggles to cut through the web-like strings that Demian has created during his earlier battle. The pressure mounts on Liang. If they fail to meet their quota, he will bear the brunt of the responsibility alone, motivating him to push the group to work faster. Suddenly, one of his group members spots something on the ground and shouts for Liang to come look. As he approaches to confirm what he sees, he is shocked and confused. He wonders who could have taken down the Fabers before them and how they managed to do it. Although the Faber forest does not technically belong to Jungsan Industries, Liang knows that to monopolize the valuable hardened shells, his group eliminates any users who venture too close. Seeing that someone has already defeated the Fabers in this secluded area leaves him both frustrated and alarmed. Filled with irritation, Liang signals his team to locate and capture the person responsible. Just as he does, his group spots Demian nearby. They identify him as the likely intruder responsible for defeating the Fabers. Demian, oblivious to their presence at first, has returned to collect any remaining shells he may have missed. As Liang observes Demian from a distance, he notes his unusual appearance, clad only in undergarments and a boar's skull as gear. This strange attire perplexes him. Deciding to confront him, Liang approaches with a commanding presence, signaling to Demian to leave everything behind. To his surprise, Demian appears confused, as if he cannot fully understand the language Liang uses. The dialect is foreign to Demian, possibly something from North Korea or Korean Chinese. Liang introduces himself to Demian, but the conversation takes an unexpected turn when Demian casually inquires if Liang is the leader of the infamous workshop he's heard about on the community chat. Liang is taken aback as Demian openly reveals knowledge of the group's reputation, specifically their brutal tactics at Celis Valley, where they deployed ruthless, large-scale attacks against other users. Demian notes that their workshop operates through intimidation and force, exploiting violence and even killing to achieve their goals. He hadn't expected to cross paths with them in this forest, but sees it as a fitting chance to confront them. Realizing that Demian is fully aware of the group's dark methods, Liang threatens to kill him unless he forfeits everything he's collected. Demian, however, remains calm, warning them to consider fair play while he's still in a mood to give them the option. Unfazed, Liang commands his members to attack Demian. As they fire, Demian effortlessly dodges each strike, leaving Liang stunned. Demian explains that their moves are easy to read, which gives him the upper hand. Through this, Demian makes it clear that, despite the group's habit of overpowering users with numbers, he isn't intimidated. His strength alone will be more than enough to handle them. Demian holds Liang hostage, gripping him tightly as Liang's allies shout and demand his release, firing a volley of arrows. Demian swiftly dodges the attacks, but Liang isn't as lucky and gets struck by one of the arrows. In a sudden, lethal charge, Demian lunges toward the group, cutting through them with fatal precision, taking each one down in a blur of motion. Bloodied and furious, Liang draws a crossbow, aiming it at Demian, but Demian only scoffs. "None of you will leave this place alive," he warns, launching into another brutal assault. Meanwhile, in the Jungsan Industries factory, Mingchen receives shocking news that Daytime Group 1 has been completely annihilated. His initial thought is that a Japanese faction must have attacked, but a subordinate insists it's the work of the same individual who deposited 3 million gold in the game bank. Disbelieving, Mingchen strikes the subordinate, thinking it must be a mistake, but the man steadfastly insists, recounting every detail of the incident. Back at the scene, Demian savors his victory, marveling at the experience gained. Reaching level 30 after defeating 50 players seems fitting, given the intensity of the battle. Along with the experience points, he collects rare items, resources that are notoriously hard to come by. It feels almost surreal to amass such wealth in one fell swoop, and he suspects that the party had likely looted quite a bit themselves. Calculating his newfound riches, he realizes he has enough gold to potentially exchange for tens of millions of won, possibly even hundreds of millions if he manipulates the rates wisely. With financial security on his mind, Demian contemplates using the materials he acquired to craft gear using the Black Pledge Tome of the End of Times, selecting the finest pieces to prepare. In the aftermath of the battle, Demian receives a new title, Lonely Hyena, a distinction granted to those who have collected 9,999 items dropped by other players. Along with the title comes a unique skill set, enhancing his ability to detect precious items with uncanny precision. This newfound ability fuels his ambition to focus on player killing, PK, rather than hunting monsters, considering it a more lucrative path. Contemplating the scale of Jungsan Industries' patrols, he estimates that with 50 men in each shift, day and night, their total force exceeds 100. The potential profits excite him, though he's fully aware of the retaliatory strike Jungsan Industries will likely launch after suffering such a substantial financial loss. Dealing with them, he realizes, will mean tying up a lot of loose ends. Meanwhile, a group of Jungsan Industries adventurers comb the area, searching tirelessly for Demian. Weary and disheartened after an exhaustive day, they're bolstered by their leader, who urges them to hold out just a little longer. Once we take Demian down, everything will return to normal, he reassures them. Yet unease lingers among the ranks, especially as they realize Mingchen didn't equip them with any return scrolls. The party leader tries to quiet their concerns, urging them to stay focused and vigilant. Suddenly, a chilling silence settles over the area, and the leader senses something is wrong. Turning back, he's horrified to find his entire team lying unconscious or worse. Heart pounding, he draws his sword, but before he can react, Demian materializes right in front of him. In a swift, calculated move, Demian strikes, knocking him out cold. The party leader regains consciousness, groggy and bound tightly with rope. As his eyes adjust, he notices small, undead chicks milling around, summoned by Demian, who watches him closely. Panic wells up in the leader as he realizes he's trapped, but before he can even think of escape, he notices Demian's eyes on him. Demian signals to Piley, who promptly rolls up the leader's sleeves, exposing bare skin. Out of nowhere, Demian produces 3 menacing, poison-coated needles. The leader's face pales in terror, but Demian drives the needles in without hesitation. As the poison takes hold, his health slowly drains, each wave of pain intensifying while Demian coldly observes, showing no signs of mercy. For Demian, this is only the beginning. Hours later, Demian appears worn, having battled ceaselessly for 48 hours straight. Over that time, he's taken down 100 men from Jungsan Industries' day and night patrols, refusing to relent until every target lies defeated. His relentless use of his reanimation skill has brought forth countless chicks, summoned repeatedly to assist him in his siege. While their individual strength is weak and their skills limited, their endless numbers provide him with an overwhelming advantage. With sufficient magic and casting time, Demian realizes he can multiply them infinitely, allowing him to wear down even formidable enemies. Though the specs of these summoned creatures aren't remarkable, they serve their purpose well. He pulls up his status window and activates the Black Pledge Tome of the End of Times, preparing to craft new gear. The idea of experimenting with Piley and the chicks also occurs to him. He considers testing their resilience and combat capabilities as he plans his next moves. In Shanghai's Pudong district, Zhang Wei, the chairman of the influential Jiangsa Kirin organization, receives alarming information. He learns that Jungsan Industries' AC team has been completely wiped out in a single brutal assault. Although Jungsan Industries is only a minor front he uses to launder funds, the audacity of a lone attacker eliminating all its members is too glaring to ignore. Concerned about the potential ripple effects on his operations, he decides to take action. Without hesitation, he makes a call and issues strict orders to eliminate this rogue threat before it poses any further risk. A player is seen sprinting through the dense forest, terror etched on his face, desperately fleeing from a massacre where dozens of his companions were slaughtered by a powerful mage. As he races through the trees, a sudden bolt of lightning streaks toward him. He barely manages to dodge, but the impact of the near miss knocks him off balance, sending him sprawling to the ground. Before he can catch his breath, the mage appears, towering over him with an ominous grin. It's King Arthur, who commends him for evading the lightning, a rare feat for most. Calmly, King Arthur informs him that if he hopes to defeat him, he'd need the entire Blood Alliance by his side. Without further warning, King Arthur raises his hand, sending another surge of lightning straight at the player. Meanwhile, Demian arrives at Cornet Village and heads directly to the chief's house, eager not to be late for his first quest here. Inside, he meets the village chief, Albert, who breathes a sigh of relief at his arrival. Albert explains that he had urgently requested aid from the Adventurer Guild, and Demian is the one assigned to address their problem. Albert describes the troubling situation. The village's sheep have been disappearing mysteriously, and the villagers, deeply attached to their livestock, are growing increasingly anxious. The entire village carries a sense of gloom, and Demian immediately picks up on the uneasy atmosphere. Albert continues, revealing that the sheep started vanishing about a month ago. When Demian asks who tends to the sheep, Albert explains that an orphan named Joseph is responsible. Decades ago, a lumberjack took Joseph in, and he has cared for the village sheep ever since. According to Joseph, the cause of the disappearances is a wolf that has recently begun lurking near the village. However, the village chief admits that he doesn't believe Joseph's story. Known for his mischievous pranks, Joseph has gained a reputation as a troublemaker, which led the villagers to suspect him as the culprit behind the missing sheep. As a result, they accused him of theft and locked him up, hoping it would put an end to the disappearances. Yet, even with Joseph in confinement, the sheep continue to vanish, leaving the villagers both perplexed and fearful. Albert, clearly worried, pleads with Demian to investigate and uncover the true cause of the mystery. In response, Demian requests to see Joseph, assuring Albert that he'll get to the bottom of the situation quickly. With confidence, he promises that he'll have answers in no time. Demian walks up to a small wooden house guarded by two men. Amused, he thinks this must be the place where Joseph is being held. From inside, he hears Joseph yelling, insisting he's innocent. The guards, clearly fed up with Joseph's shouting, seem convinced he's guilty. Demian, however, isn't too concerned about that. He's here to earn his pay. As he approaches, he recalls hearing that Joseph was recently left alone when the lumberjack who raised him passed away from illness. Since then, Joseph has been helping others and taking care of sheep to make a living. Demian wonders why the village would punish a boy for hurting sheep, but pushes the thought aside. The guards, surprised to see Demian, ask why he isn't with Chief Albert. Demian calmly replies that he's already spoken to the chief. He asks about Joseph, noting that the boy is still causing a commotion inside. The guards, looking weary, grumble that Joseph has been yelling all day and it's stressing them out. Demian asks them to step aside so he can see Joseph. He then kicks the door open. Inside, Joseph jumps in surprise, staring at Demian and asking who he is. Demian introduces himself as a mercenary from the Adventurers Guild, while Piley, his talking chick companion, chirps in as well. Joseph is stunned, especially at the sight of the talking chick, leaving him wondering what's happening. Joseph explains that he saw an enormous wolf, much bigger than any human, and that it appeared to be hunting a bear. Demian is surprised, but one of the guards scoffs, saying it's impossible for a wolf to be that large, let alone able to hunt bears. However, Demian knows that with so many kinds of monsters in the world, it's not impossible at all. He asks Joseph where he saw the wolf, and Joseph points him towards the Caliph Mountain Highlands, giving him clear directions. As Demian prepares to leave, he receives a quest notification about the wolves in the Caliph Highlands, which he immediately accepts. He sets off at full speed, equipped with his voodooist gear from the Tome of the End of Times, a set of rare and powerful gear that can't simply be bought with money. Demian knows he'll need it, as the highlands are likely filled with monsters at level 30 and above. Reaching the base of Caliph Mountain Highlands, Demian surveys the rocky terrain and dense woods scattered around the mountains. He slams his hand to the ground, activating his reanimation skill, readying himself for any lurking threats nearby. Meanwhile, a group of high-ranking adventurers, led by a woman named Su Hyun, is making their way toward the Caliph Highlands. She informs her team that the mountain has never been fully conquered, so they could make a name for themselves by doing it. One of the group members, a cocky fighter, boasts about his skills, claiming they'll have no trouble defeating the so-called Great Wolf King. He even tries to reassure their nervous healer, exuding confidence. A knight in the group, however, tells him to save his energy for the mission and keep moving, reminding him that someone else might get to the wolf first. Su Hyun also encourages everyone to pick up the pace. Suddenly they hear a loud explosion nearby, echoing across the mountainside. Startled, the group pauses, looking around for the source. Not far from them, Demian is using explosive vials to create loud blasts, hoping to lure out the wolves. His plan works as a large pack of wolves rushes toward him, clearly angered by the noise. Instead of fear, Demian's face lights up with excitement as he watches the wolves swarming out. Demian wasn't expecting so many wolves. They seem to emerge from narrow gaps between the rocks, leading him to suspect there's a den hidden among them. As one of the wolves charges at him, he quickly throws a decaying potion, watching as it takes effect. The wolf writhes on the ground, its defenses and health points dropping with each passing second. Feeling confident, Demian recalls he's already at level 34, and with his powerful gear that rivals top-tier game AC users, he believes he can handle these wolves alone. He commands Piley and the numerous chicks he's summoned to prepare for battle. Each chick holds a small flute, while Demian raises a Bentham's rooster totem, a rare and valuable item he crafted using the pledge book of the End of Times. This unique totem allows him to upgrade the chicks' basic attacks, transforming them into level 10 poison darts. With a signal, the chicks launch poisonous needles at the wolves, infecting them all with poison. Demian watches with satisfaction as the wolves' health quickly drains, many of them collapsing without him even lifting a weapon. To boost his summoned chicks' power further, he casts a bloodthirsty skill on them, temporarily enhancing their attack damage and other stats to make up for their lower base strength. The chicks finish collecting the wolves' molars scattered around, bringing them to Demian, who can barely contain his excitement. He thinks how perfect it would be if the Great Wolf King also appeared, especially since he now realizes that, according to the quest details, he must defeat both the Great Wolf King and the entire Caliph Wolf Pack to complete it. Just then, a notification flashes. One of his chicks has died. Alarmed, Demian quickly realizes that the Great Wolf King has arrived, summoning the remaining Caliph wolves to its side. The sight of the massive wolf surrounded by a fierce pack takes him by surprise, but he wastes no time, activating his bloodthirsty skill to strengthen his chick army. He orders the chicks to regroup and prepare to fire, their poisonous darts launching at the approaching wolves. As the battle intensifies, Demian charges toward the great wolf king at high speed, successfully drawing its aggro. The massive wolf lunges at him, but Demian deftly dodges, then tosses a decaying potion at it, watching as corrosion begins to spread across its fur. Yet something feels off. Despite the damage it's taking, the great wolf king hasn't activated any special skills, whether offensive, defensive, or even an area of effect, AoE, attack. Suspicious but undeterred, Demian decides to take advantage of the situation. Although it feels a bit too easy, he remains focused, determined to bring down the Great Wolf King and complete the quest as quickly as possible. As Demian battles the Great Wolf King, he realizes its pattern alternates between powerful attacks and crowd control moves, meaning he needs to end the fight quickly before it overwhelms him. He dashes up a nearby slope, launching multiple rapid slashes down at the Great Wolf King. The fierce exchange of blows creates loud echoes across the mountains, drawing the attention of Soo Hyun and her team in the distance. They pause, hearing the rumbling and wondering if it's a clash between monsters fighting for territory. After all, they'd set out early to be the first ones here. However, as they approach, they're shocked to see it's not monsters fighting. It's a single person. Soo Hyun and her party watch in awe as Demian alone faces the gigantic wolf. But the confident member of their team isn't willing to let Demian claim victory on his own. Ignoring the warnings of his teammates, he charges forward, determined to join the fight and secure the kill. Meanwhile, Demian notices the Great Wolf King's HP bar barely budging despite his relentless attacks, and it's closing the distance between them quickly. Deciding he needs a change in strategy, he switches to a long-range weapon, keeping his distance to avoid its powerful melee attacks and crowd control moves. Demian realizes he must stay alert, as the Great Wolf King's full abilities remain a mystery. Just as he's about to launch a volley of poisonous darts, the Great Wolf King lets out a thunderous howl, summoning a pack of wolves from all directions. They leap at Demian, sinking their teeth into him, and his HP starts to drop rapidly from bleeding damage. Alarmed, he recognizes the wolf's unique summoning skill, a specialty that complicates his situation. To counter the ambush, Demian activates his zombification ability, momentarily dulling the bleeding effects and allowing him to break free. Frustrated by the wolf's surprise attack, he retaliates with renewed ferocity, crushing one of the wolf minions before cracking his knuckles, ready to clear out the rest in quick succession. Meanwhile, the overconfident adventurer from Soo Hyun's party races towards the battle, unwilling to let Demian complete the quest solo and claim all the rewards. As he arrives, he's stunned to witness Demian delivering the final blow to the Great Wolf King and watching a high-grade item, a wild nature's crystal, drop from the defeated beast. Demian's level has risen, aided by the support of his summoned chicks, who have handled the remaining wolves. Just as Demian prepares to leave, an arrow streaks toward him. He instinctively raises his hand, blocking it just in time. The overconfident adventurer steps forward, revealing himself with a smirk. "Good reflexes," he sneers. "But don't think you can take another step unless you want to die." Demian glares at him, yanking the arrow out calmly, his eyes fixed on the intruder. Demian quickly recognizes the distinct crossbow style, common among Jungsan Industries members, marking his opponent as a ranger class. An agile type, but not usually difficult to handle. However, the ranger wastes no time, shooting another arrow just as Demian begins to move, grazing his face. Realizing this won't be as straightforward as expected, Demian pauses to reassess his approach. Observing the ranger inching closer right as his zombification ability fades, Demian deduces his opponent is no ordinary fighter. The ranger demands that Demian discard everything he's gained from the Great Wolf King, including his gear. Unmoved, Demian refuses, aware of the struggle he endured to earn these rewards. Angered, the ranger attacks fiercely, prompting Demian to activate his bloodthirsty skill, enhancing his reflexes to dodge the incoming arrows. Calculating his next move, Demian reaches for his recovery potion, knowing that restoring his energy will allow him to activate both Wood Deer's Blessing and Flame Feast, abilities that may turn the tide in his favor. Demian quickly drinks the recovery potion, preparing to inflict maximum damage on the ranger, whose attack patterns he's now studied and predicted. The ranger realizes Demian is merely playing with him, growing anxious and trying to act swiftly, but Demian has already closed the gap between them. With a smirk, Demian lands a punch, taunting that he can anticipate every move. Before the ranger can react, Demian smashes a decaying potion onto him, causing the ranger to writhe in pain as his defenses weaken from the poison's corrosive effects. In shock, the ranger grasps that Demian isn't solely a melee fighter. Demian follows up with another decaying potion, corroding the ranger's bowgun until it's unusable. But the ranger swiftly brings out a heavy hunting arbalest, firing a shot that Demian struggles to keep up with, astonished by the sheer explosive force. Confused as to why he's unable to match the ranger's speed, despite no visible cloak or invisibility effect, Demian suspects a unique skill is in play. The ranger then unleashes a flurry of shots, combining skills like invisible bowshot with dark hunter, increasing his lethality and agility. Realizing the ranger's strategy hinges on speed and surprise, Demian knows his only viable option is a decisive, rapid strike before the next volley comes. Demian activates his gear and dashes toward the ranger with insane speed. The ranger is startled and unable to react in time. In the blink of an eye, Demian pierces him with poisonous darts, causing the ranger to struggle for breath. As he gasps for air, Demian holds up a mini statue and threatens to stab it again, watching the ranger's expression shift to one of fear. The statue seems to unsettle the ranger, who now looks genuinely scared. Soo-hyun and the others stand at the edge of the battle, their eyes fixed on the unfolding scene. They quickly realize that they no longer see the familiar flashes of the ranger's arrows, and an uneasy silence falls over them. Suddenly they hear a horrific scream that pierces the air, and they turn to witness the ranger's health rapidly diminishing. His HP is dropping at an alarming rate, confirming that something is terribly wrong. The knight among them, sensing the dire situation, frowns and tightens his grip on his weapon. His experience tells him that the ranger's opponent must be extraordinary, as no ordinary person could inflict such damage in such a short time. He begins to caution the group, advising them not to engage the mysterious enemy. However, his words are met with firm resistance from Soo-hyun, who stands resolutely. She gives an order to the healer, instructing them to buff the party, and makes it clear that they will continue with their offensive. Meanwhile, Demian and the ranger are engaged in a battle of wills. The ranger is writhing in pain, his body reacting violently to an unseen force. As his condition worsens, it becomes clear that the source of his suffering is Demian. The ranger's HP continues to drop, and his body struggles to keep up with the damage being inflicted. Demian, standing before him, watches with a calculating gaze. He has control over the situation, and the pain the ranger is experiencing seems to only fuel his resolve. Demian watches as the ranger, barely conscious, tries to beg for mercy, pleading for one more chance. His voice trembles with desperation, but Demian remains unmoved. Ultimately, the ranger succumbs to the pain and loses consciousness, collapsing into a heap on the ground. As Demian stands over him, he briefly wonders whether the ranger is still alive. Before he can dwell on it, Soo-hyun and the rest of her party arrive at the scene. Their eyes scan the battlefield, and they quickly realize that the ranger is still barely alive, his body twitching with the last remnants of life. The atmosphere shifts immediately. Soo-hyun's expression hardens, and her hostility toward Demian becomes palpable. The others move into battle positions, ready to engage. It's clear that they have figured out Demian's tendencies and are now on high alert. Demian assesses the situation, realizing that his skills are in cooldown, and he briefly considers attempting to talk his way out of this confrontation. However, Soo-hyun makes it clear that she is not interested in conversation. She demands that he explain himself, but Demian retorts, stating that it was their party member who started this whole conflict by demanding he hand over the loot from the Great Wolf King, including his gear. His words hang in the air, but it's clear that Soo-hyun is beyond reasoning. At that moment, the ranger, despite being on the verge of death, somehow regains consciousness. In one last desperate attempt, he pulls out a hidden crossbow and aims it at Demian. The arrow is released with terrifying speed, but Demian, anticipating this, reacts instantly. He stabs the cursed doll once again, and with a final scream of pain, the ranger dies, his body going limp. Soo-hyun's fury explodes at the sight of the ranger's death. She assumes Demian had intended to kill him from the start, and her anger drives her into a blind rage. Without hesitation, she charges toward him with her sword drawn, determined to avenge her fallen comrade. Demian braces himself for the incoming attack, knowing he has little choice but to fight back. As Soo-hyun's sword swings toward him with deadly precision, Demian activates his skills to block the strike. He feels the force of her blade as it collides with his defenses, but he quickly notices that she is not only highly skilled with the sword, but also receiving continuous buffs from the healer. The combined pressure of her attacks and the healer's support begins to overwhelm him. Realizing that he needs to regain control of the situation, Demian acts quickly. He smashes a vial of fog onto the ground, the dense smoke enveloping the area and obscuring everyone's vision. In the chaos, Demian separates Soo-hyun from her healer, knowing that without her support, she will be far easier to deal with. As the fog clears, he can see Soo-hyun standing on the opposite side, momentarily disoriented by the trap he set. She swings her blade at him with fierce intent, but Demian easily dodges each of her attacks, moving with remarkable agility. After a moment, Demian decides to shift the battle in his favor. He pulls out a small clinical flask, a container that holds a lethal poison. With a swift motion, he hurls the flask to the ground. Upon impact, it explodes in a burst of poisonous fumes, sending Soo Hyun, her knight, and the healer flying backward. The force of the explosion knocks them off balance, but for Soo Hyun, who was at the front, the effects are even worse. Most of the clothes she's wearing are melted away by the corrosive fumes. When Demian observes the aftermath, he remarks coldly, stating that his original intention was to destroy her body with the poison, but it seems the explosion only melted her clothes. His work is far from complete. Demian, sensing the healer's exposure, knows that they were relying on her for defense. Before the healer can react or begin casting any defensive spells, Demian pulls out a hollow long stick from his belt and holds it near his mouth. He blows into it, releasing a poisoned pin from its end. The pin flies with deadly accuracy, striking the healer multiple times. Within moments, the healer's body begins to convulse, and in less than 30 seconds she falls to the ground. Demian turns his attention to the knight, the only one still standing. The knight, with his back against the wall, desperately looks at Demian as the tension rises. He remembers clearly telling both Soo Hyun and the healer not to engage in the fight, warning them of the danger that Demian posed. However, now, faced with the cold, calculating presence of Demian, he is powerless. As Demian draws closer, the knight frantically presses the notification to log out, hoping for an escape. You cannot log out until 300 seconds have passed, and combat is active. He knows he has no way to escape this. Realizing his predicament, the knight drops to his knees in an act of submission. He begs Demian for mercy, offering to do anything in return for his life. Demian, on the other hand, feels a sense of satisfaction in this moment. He had anticipated the knight's reaction, knowing that his poison wouldn't be able to melt the knight's armor, helmet, or other protective gear. Instead of ending the knight's life, Demian takes a step back, coldly demanding that he give up everything: money, clothes, gear, anything of value that he possesses. The knight, realizing there is no other choice, succumbs to Demian's demands after a few moments of resistance. The villagers stand in awe and fear, seeing the giant wolf up close. As the chief steps closer to the wolf's body, he pulls out one of its large fangs, remarking that if this wolf had been alive and faced a bear, it could have defeated it due to the sheer power of its fangs. Demian listens, then tells the villagers that they should apologize to Joseph for not believing his story earlier. Just as he finishes speaking, Demian's notification pops up, confirming that he has completed his first adventurer mission and instructing him to report to the Adventurer Guild. He nods, signaling the end of his business in the village. As he starts to leave, Joseph rushes toward him, kneeling in gratitude. He thanks Demian for saving both his sheep and the village from the giant wolf. Demian acknowledges their gratitude, then gives Joseph a final piece of advice: to never lie again, as lying could have serious consequences. With that, he departs the village and heads toward the Adventurer Guild. With the money he earned from both the villagers and the Adventurer Guild, Demian finds himself wealthier than ever before. He uses the funds to rent a luxurious 4-star inn in Terra Kingdom. As he lies down, the softness of the sheets and the quiet atmosphere allow him to fully relax, and his body begins to recover. The stress and exhaustion that had accumulated throughout the day slowly fade. He takes a moment to check his notification pad, eager to look over the items he has acquired. His eyes gleam with satisfaction as he scrolls through the list, noticing the valuable goods he's gained from Miss Hyun, the healer, and especially the knight. From the knight, he received a bounty of useful items, many of which could fetch a high price if sold. Demian smiles to himself, already thinking about how he could use the proceeds to further enhance his gear and weapons. He makes a mental note to save any leftover money for the future, promising himself to be more strategic with his earnings. Beside him, Piley stirs and wakes up, noticing Demian absorbed in his pad. Just as he starts planning his next move, a new message pops up on his screen. It's from an unknown source. The message describes a man cloaked in a hood, his clothes completely black, a follower on a dark mission. This man, named Alistair, was reporting to a figure shrouded in mist, his controller, whose form was elusive and dark in color. The conversation reveals that Alistair has been able to control his subjects through a medium, allowing him to sense what they are experiencing and even see glimpses of the future. The misty figure encourages him to continue his research and work on eliminating the need for a medium. Alistair listens intently as the controller explains that the power of the gods has already been granted to him and that he must now use it to control more creatures and beasts, emphasizing the importance of this mission. The mysterious boss also gives Alistair further instructions, asking him to focus on controlling the bodies of the subjects themselves, rather than relying on intermediaries. Alistair nods in understanding, and the boss agrees, noting that this breakthrough will be critical to their cause. Before they part ways, the boss instructs Alistair to say a dark prayer, a ritual written for the Messiah, and Alistair complies, reciting the ominous words as the message ends. Demian's phone buzzes again, this time with a notification from Wiz Entertainment in Korean, asking if they could get a moment of his time. Demian's heart skips a beat as he hopes that this is the company he's been thinking about. Wiz Entertainment is known as the world's largest internet broadcasting platform, as well as the parent company of Switch's subsidiary management. It is the same company that countless streamers, including top-ranked Korean streamers, are affiliated with. Before Demian had returned to the past, this was the company that so many aspiring streamers dreamed of joining. However, a wave of curiosity and doubt fills Demian as he wonders why they are reaching out to him. After all, he is not even a streamer yet. This makes him uneasy, and he starts to feel bad about it. Throughout his life, he's mostly met thieves and shady people, so his mind races with suspicions. He wonders if someone introduced him to the company, and then he recalls the players he met before. Perhaps some of them were affiliated with Wiz Entertainment. Soon, Demian's thoughts are interrupted by a call from the chief producer at Wiz Entertainment, a man named Sung-hoon. He invites Demian to meet him in person at their office in Seoul, Gangnam District, Cheongdam-dong, despite the fact that it's an urgent summons. When Demian arrives, Sung-hoon greets him warmly, relieved that Demian came. But Demian doesn't share the same sense of excitement. He's more focused on finding out the reason for this meeting. Demian, with suspicion in his voice, asks Sung-hoon how they even got his details. Sung-hoon, with a friendly smile, explains that they got his information from Brian's log records. It turns out Brian wanted to find him, and in doing so, he collaborated with Wiz Entertainment to track Demian down. Demian is offered the chance to sign an exclusive contract with Wiz Entertainment, inviting him to become a full-time streamer. As he looks over the terms, he realizes that it's a generous offer, one that would benefit him greatly. After weighing his options, Demian decides to accept the offer, feeling that this could be a good opportunity for him to pursue. Once the deal is settled, he takes his leave, thinking about other things he needs to take care of. One of his immediate concerns is someone who owes him money. He decides to handle that first. Afterward, he heads off to sell some of the items he's gathered during his time in the game. The items, which total close to 6,000, bring in a whopping 6 million gold. Demian is pleased with the profit he's made, especially since he's only been playing the game for about a month. In total, he's earned nearly 100 million won, which feels like a huge success for him. However, as he thinks about his success, a more serious thought crosses his mind. Demian remembers how he had abandoned his family in the past, driven by his addiction to the game. He recalls the warning he received back then, that if he ever stopped playing, he would die. This memory causes a wave of guilt to wash over him, and he vows to himself that he will not make the same mistake again. He promises not to abandon his family or allow himself to fall into the same obsession with the game. But even as he makes this promise, he can't shake the nagging question of why he was sent 10 years back in time. Demian's concerns don't stop there. He also starts thinking about the current #1 mage, known as King Arthur, or Yuman, who is one of the 6 masters. This mage is a significant figure in the game, and Demian realizes he needs to understand the growth patterns of the 6 masters if he wants to stay ahead of the game. As Demian reflects on his situation, he realizes that something crucial is missing. He is reminded that, out of everyone in the expeditionary force, only he and Yuman had survived the dangerous journey. However, his memories quickly turn dark as he recalls how Yuman had betrayed him. When they were supposed to take down the Demon King Abraxas together, Yuman stabbed Demian in the back, revealing his true nature. Demian knows that even if he hadn't been sent back 10 years into the past, Yuman would never have gotten away with his actions. The idea of being the last standing player to defeat the final boss would have been unheard of, and Demian would have had to face the consequences of that betrayal. Demian also remembers that if the events had unfolded as they did before, he would have attended Yuman's press conference after the expedition's success. But back then, Demian had already lost everything and had nothing left to hold on to. Now, with the knowledge that he has another chance, Demian is determined to make sure the past doesn't repeat itself. He is not ready to let the betrayal slide. He wants to hold Yuman accountable, even if it means going against him again. Later, Demian meets up with his old friend, someone he knew before he was sent back in time. He wants to spend some time together, have a meal, and reconnect. During their time together, Demian also calls his mother to check in on her well-being. He feels a sense of responsibility to use the money he's earned from the game to support his family, particularly to cover their living expenses and to help pay for his father's nursing home care. While they're eating, Demian's friend expresses an interest in getting into the game, just like Demian. He sees the potential for the game to be an extra source of income and wants to try it out. Demian, understanding this, offers to help him by buying a gaming capsule, which is essential for fully immersing in the game. Although Demian's friend doesn't quite understand why Demian is being so generous, Demian has a reason. He is repaying his friend for the kindness he had shown him before he was sent back in time. This kindness had stayed with Demian, and now he wants to return the favor. At the same time, Demian is determined to help others in similar ways, hoping to make up for the wrongs he experienced in the past. Thereafter, Demian left his friend and went back into his game. As he was checking some items he had, suddenly he heard Karen's voice from behind, and when he looked back, he asked, shocked to see that he was the one, as he did not know what the old AMNW is doing there. However, Karen greeted him from where he was standing. Demian is caught off guard when he sees Karen unexpectedly appear behind him. He remembers how quickly the old man had left when Demian accepted him as his disciple, so he wonders why Karen has come now. However, Karen doesn't respond to Demian's question, instead considering him disrespectful. As Karen glances at what Demian is holding, he takes it from him without asking, and begins inspecting it. Demian explains that he obtained the item from a boss fight at Caliph Mountain. After checking Demian's status, Karen expresses disappointment, as he had expected Demian to be further along in his development. He notes that Demian still has a long way to go in controlling his body, which concerns him. Karen then realizes the true source of Demian's power, which comes from his battle with Demon King Abraxas. He is surprised by how well Demian has managed to retain that strength. While they continue their conversation, Demian receives a message from his friend Minjun, who has also joined the game. Demian immediately replies, offering advice on what Minjun will need to get started and play effectively. Karen then hands the token back to Demian, explaining that it is a key part of his solution. The power source of the item is linked to Demian's own, suggesting it could help him unlock new abilities or insights. At that moment, Demian's system notifies him of a new quest. He is instructed to find the group that uses the Mark of Heresy. He understands this will be another critical mission for him, but before embarking on it, he returns to the guild. When Demian arrives, Hassan and the others are impressed by how quickly he has completed his previous task. As a result, Demian is approached by a government representative who offers him a job. However, Demian declines the offer, choosing to remain a gold-tier adventurer instead. Hassan suggests that he could introduce Demian to some royal or wealthy families, knowing that many would be eager to have a gold-tier adventurer like Demian on their side. Demian, though aware that he has earned his reputation through hard work, replies that he prefers to focus on quests instead. Hassan, understanding Demian's mindset, isn't surprised by this request. He knows that Demian has the strength to handle anything, and that someone like Maria would always covet his skills. Demian then asks if there is any news for him, and Hassan informs him about the expeditionary force that recently ventured into the Kirakoram swamp. The group was completely wiped out. Demian, shocked by this revelation, listens as Hassan explains the number of adventurers who went and the disastrous outcome of their mission. This news stirs something in Demian, and he decides that he wants to go to the swamp himself. Hassan grants him permission but reminds him that the system insists he form a party if he intends to go. Realizing the mission might be more dangerous than he initially thought, Demian agrees and starts looking for party members. Meanwhile, a man named Jiang Wei is seen being congratulated. He is the chairman of the Jiangsa Kirin organization, one of the 5 Eastern Dragons. They are waiting for the results of a test, and when the results are announced, Ryu Rei, the second-in-command at Jiangsa Kirin, requests that the test results be announced to him directly. The person in charge of reviewing their results is visibly impressed by their performance. Unlike other teams that typically focus on slaying monsters during the test, this team takes a more strategic approach. Instead of killing monsters, they collect combat data, carefully observing and analyzing their surroundings. This unique method catches the attention of the guild staff, who are astonished by their discipline and analytical combat style. While they wait for their certificates, Ryu Rei, the second-in-command, shares some news with Jiang Wei. He begins to tell Wei about the recent destruction of the Weilong forces. At first, Wei is skeptical and doesn't believe the story. The Weilong forces, led by Wang Liaowei, are one of the most powerful and well-financed groups. Rei explains that the Weilong forces invested an enormous portion of their finances, about 70%, into their operations, making them a formidable power in the region. However, despite their significant financial backing and strong leadership, the group is completely annihilated not long after their formation. To Wei's astonishment, Rei continues with an even more shocking revelation. The entire Weilong force, including their leader Wang Liaowei, is wiped out by a single individual. The triad has long been soaked in blood, the result of decades of power struggles between various factions. Over time, these factions have had to rally under the banners of 5 major forces, with the Jiangsa Kirin organization being one of them. These 5 organizations, collectively known as the 5 Eastern Dragons, quickly begin to recover from the damage they sustained during the Triad conflicts. Despite the turmoil, the power of the 5 Eastern Dragons remains strong, and the organizations under them rebuild their influence. Jiang Wei, who has witnessed much of the power shifts and internal struggles within these forces, knows that Cheng Bing, the 4th dragon and the head of the Blue Dragon Society, will be devastated by the recent developments. Cheng Bing has invested a great deal of effort and resources into maintaining the strength of the Blue Dragon Society. Now, hearing of its downfall alongside the Weilong forces, Wei can already imagine how deeply this will affect Cheng Bing. It will be painful to watch something he has nurtured for so long crumble. Wei also finds it interesting that 2 dragons have already been severely impacted by these events. The fact that the forces are crumbling in this way raises suspicions, and Wei's curiosity deepens as he wonders who could possibly be behind the annihilation of such powerful organizations. Whoever it is, they clearly possess strength beyond what anyone could have expected. Meanwhile, Yuman, who has just finished filming after an exhausting 15-hour shoot, is still seen engaging with others. His popularity as a celebrity makes it clear why people are eager to interact with him. Despite his tiredness, he maintains his charismatic demeanor and continues addressing the crowd, always giving off an air of confidence and charm. Later, Yuman is seen having a conversation with Daye, a well-known actress who has developed feelings for him. Daye looks at him with admiration, and it's apparent that Yuman is aware of her affection. He offers to buy her a meal after the wrap party, an offer that surprises Daye, especially because Yuman is typically reserved with such personal gestures. To Daye's delight, Yuman even gives her his personal phone number, a rare move for someone as guarded as him. She is overjoyed, unaware that Yuman's actions are likely just playful and fleeting. He enjoys the attention but is not as invested in her feelings as she believes. After finishing his conversation with Daye, Yuman leaves the filming set, accompanied by his personal secretary, Woo-sung. Inside the car, Woo-sung drives while updating Yuman on various matters. He relays important information, from the progress of their latest projects to the latest developments with the other forces. Yuman listens attentively, processing everything Woo-sung shares with him. When Woo-sung finishes, Yuman shifts his focus and tells Woo-sung that he wants to log in and play some games for a while. It's a way for him to unwind and clear his head after the long day. At the same time, he asks Woo-sung to use this time to assemble a task force. Yuman knows that with the growing number of issues surrounding the factions and their rivals, he needs to be prepared for any situation. The task force will serve as a way to deal with the potential threats and challenges that are coming their way. Meanwhile, Demian is hard at work. He has already made a video recording calling out to adventurers or game players who haven't reached level 50 yet, inviting them to join him on his quest. He needs help, and he's hoping to form a team that can tackle the challenge ahead. He's focused, thinking ahead about the best strategies and combinations of players who can support him on this mission. However, in the back of his mind, Demian is reminded of his obligations. He still has to meet the 40 hours per week streaming requirement set by his contract with Wiz Entertainment. It's a lot of work, especially on top of the questing and the other tasks he needs to manage. But he knows that he has to work hard to fulfill his commitments. As Demian heads toward the Kirakoram swamp, he takes the opportunity to explain the plan to the adventurers he's gathered. He outlines the strategy they'll use once they reach the swamp, highlighting the dangers and challenges they may face. He emphasizes the importance of staying alert and working together, knowing that navigating this treacherous swamp requires both caution and coordination. When Demian finally reaches the Kirakoram swamp, he quickly assesses the situation. He realizes that many of the adventurers who have joined him are inexperienced when it comes to navigating such a hostile environment. Without wasting time, he takes the lead, explaining to everyone that once they manage to solve the immediate threats in the swamp, there won't be a better place to hunt for rare resources. His words inspire confidence in his team as they listen carefully to his instructions. While waiting for the remaining adventurers to arrive, Demian decides to explore the area further. Soon, he encounters a swamp alligator, its massive form emerging from the murky water. Without hesitation, Demian engages in combat with the creature. After a hard-fought battle, Demian emerges victorious, gaining valuable experience points and solidifying his position as the group's leader. With the alligator defeated and the experience points earned, Demian knows he's ready for the real task that brought him here. Jamie, a programmer, works tirelessly at his computer, the weight of his overwhelming workload pressing down on him. With no vacation days left and constant demands from his clients, his life feels like an endless cycle of coding and problem-solving. Even when he tries to take a brief break, he's inundated with more messages, further deepening his frustration with his mundane routine. Just as he's about to return to his tasks, a notification pops up on his screen. Jinsung123 is live streaming. Confused, Jamie notices that he doesn't recognize the name and wonders why the algorithm would recommend a channel he's never subscribed to. For a moment, he considers turning off the notification and ignoring it, but his curiosity gets the better of him. He clicks the link. The livestream opens to reveal a dimly lit scene. On the screen, a zombie appears, grotesque and unsettling in its movements. It's unlike anything Jamie expected, and the unsettling presence of the creature on the livestream makes him feel uneasy. Demian is surprised by the unexpected surge of viewers on his livestream. He hadn't anticipated such attention, wondering if someone had recommended his channel, but he quickly pushes the thought aside, focusing instead on the game. Despite the initial shock, he's grateful for the growing number of subscribers, and continues to fight through the onslaught of zombies, remaining calm under pressure. As he battles, his viewers are impressed by his exceptional skill and strategy. Demian effortlessly dispatches the zombies, moving with precision and confidence. His understanding of the game mechanics is clear, and the viewers begin to comment on his impressive gameplay. Just as the situation seems under control, a new wave of enemies appears, a group of undead skeletons. Demian doesn't miss a beat, explaining his tactics in real time as he continues to fight. He demonstrates his moves, calmly outlining the best ways to take down the skeletons. His sixth sense, however, stands out. Demian notices that his senses are sharper than usual, allowing him to see the weak points in his enemy's defenses with uncanny precision. This heightened awareness gives him a distinct advantage, and he walks the viewers through his strategic approach to each enemy. He mentions that unless the skeletons are planning to use holy magic, their physical bodies are vulnerable to standard attacks, especially when aiming for their joints and vital areas. With the viewers hanging on every word, he demonstrates his moves, making quick work of the skeletons. After defeating the undead skeletons, Demian's level rises to 40, a clear sign of his growing power. He briefly checks the respawn time for the skeletons, calculating it with remarkable precision. Realizing that if he keeps giving tips and explaining hunting grounds, more viewers will flock to his channel, Demian continues to give detailed insights. Soon after, people start subscribing in droves. Meanwhile, Piley informs him that they've collected all the useful items around, impressing the viewers with his summoned creatures. Demian feels that the turnout for his first stream isn't bad at all. He ends the stream with viewers showering him with positive feedback and praise. The number of times his channel is shared skyrockets, marking the moment as the birth of a major new streamer. Brian, a Switch streamer, watches Demian's livestream with a big smile on his face. He's both surprised and excited to see that Demian has become a streamer. After all, Demian once saved him from a group of mages, and the fight Demian recorded during that time brought Brian more views than he had ever gotten before. Brian feels thankful to Demian because it helped him get his video featured on AOL's Hot Clip page, which brought even more attention to his channel. As he watches, Brian is amazed when he discovers that Demian is now an exclusive streamer, just like him. He realizes this is why Demian's video is featured on the main banner. Exclusive streamers get faster marketing and more attention. Brian looks up to Demian and admires him greatly, even hoping that one day he might have the chance to meet him in person. Meanwhile, Demian is sitting down, looking exhausted. He reflects on the hunting grounds he's been exploring. Although they are great, the monsters there are tough, and he knows they won't be easy to deal with. To stay safe and make sure he can handle them, Demian decides to use his bloodthirst ability more carefully from now on, knowing it will help him stay strong during tough battles. Piley, one of Demian's companions, suggests that they should be given weapons so they can help take some of the stress off Demian. But Demian refuses, explaining that he doesn't want anyone to know about all his abilities. If they knew everything he could do, it could be dangerous, and someone might try to stab him in the back. Demian then takes a moment to go through the high-quality items he has gathered, including a large amount of gold. He feels that his earnings have been pretty good so far, and he's satisfied with how things are going. Suddenly, Demian receives a notification about a new quest located at the Kirakoram Swamp. The notification includes a warning, stating that it's a difficult quest, and advises him to bring dependable companions along. At first, Demian thinks the warning has nothing to do with the Mark of Heresy or Karen's previous warning. He assumes this quest is just another tough challenge. However, as he continues to read the notification, Demian begins to notice something strange. The atmosphere around him feels different. Demian decides to bring out the Mark of Heresy, the mysterious symbol he's been carrying with him. As soon as the mark appears, he senses something isn't right. It's almost as if the mark is reacting to the environment. He squints his eyes, focusing carefully, and soon the unsettling sight becomes clear. Strange, ghostly figures begin to materialize in the air. Their translucent forms flicker like smoke, yet they have an ominous presence. They are the very monsters that have been tormenting adventurers for some time now. the ghost monsters that have been killing those who dared venture too close. Even more terrifying, they were not just known for their deadly attacks, but also for their ability to drain the consciousness of those nearby, leaving them disoriented and vulnerable, as if their minds were being fogged by some invisible force. Demian stands still for a moment, his heart racing. This was not something he expected to encounter, despite the warnings he had heard. The ghost monsters, the spectral creatures that haunted these lands, were said to possess powers far beyond anything a regular adventurer could face. Karen had warned him to avoid monsters that could drain his energy, as they would render him powerless and potentially leave him a shell of his former self. Even Hassan, an experienced adventurer, had shared stories of groups of adventurers who vanished one by one, their comrades either lost forever or returning broken and unstable. Just as Demian is about to prepare for an attack, thinking that these ghost monsters might be coming for him as so many had warned, instead of attacking, they pass by him, silent, almost like shadows, moving in the direction of the swamp areas behind him. Eventually, he reaches the Lake of Oblivion, a place known to hold the souls of many dead people. Meanwhile, Kunoichi arrives at the same spot. She jumps down, confident that something important is here. She had seen a live stream and believes she can sense something strange nearby. When she touches the ground, she feels the energy of Demian, confirming that he has passed through this area. She smells the air, using his scent to track when he has been there. She quickly realizes that he was there less than 30 minutes ago. However, as she smells the air, Kunoichi suddenly remembers how Demian humiliated her. He robbed her of everything, and it wasn't the stealing that made her angry. It was the way he treated her, like she was weak. She is furious about the humiliation and wants revenge. To help her find him faster, she uses a magical spell to reveal his footprints on the ground, determined to track him down. Demian, with Piley by his side, has been walking for about 30 minutes, yet they still haven't seen any sign of the island they are supposed to be looking for, which should be surrounded by water. To check his location, Demian tries to use his minimap, but it fails to show anything. Instead, the map warns him to leave the area, indicating that it's too dangerous for it to provide any information. But Demian's curiosity drives him to go further. As they move ahead, he notices a song growing louder, though neither he nor Piley can tell where it's coming from. He attempts to survey the surroundings, trying to figure out where they are by observing the flow of the lake water. He realizes that the water, which should be flowing inward, is now flowing outward, sparking his curiosity about what could be causing such a change. Looking closer at the water, Demian spots the same ghost monsters he's been tracking, which only adds to the mystery. He pulls out his mark of heresy, knowing that the energy of the dead usually reacts to it, hoping it will help reveal more about where he is. After some time, he begins to notice that he's not heading toward the Lake of Oblivion as he thought. Something strange has happened, making him believe he was heading in the right direction when, in reality, he's been circling around a dead tree for several minutes, unaware of how he got stuck in the same spot. To clear his mind and regain control of his senses, Demian activates one of his mental skills. He realizes that the singing was the source of his confusion. With his mind now cleared, he can assess his surroundings and recognizes that staying here any longer would only lead to more trouble. Just as he decides to leave, the ghost monsters try to attack him. Without hesitation, Demian uses his decaying potion to destroy them, quickly making his way toward the Lake of Oblivion. As he reaches the lake, his map updates immediately, confirming he's arrived at the correct location. Now, Demian sees someone standing in the middle of the island. The figure is dressed in dark clothes like a ghost and holds a staff. He knows instantly that this is the person who's been messing with his mind. With determination, Demian confronts the man. The stranger, with red eyes, calls him and accuses him of being a filthy remnant of the gods. He claims that Demian is challenging the existing gods, calling him a dark beast who cannot coexist with them. Though still a bit far away, Demian hears everything the man says clearly. Demian's mind races as he tries to figure out if the figure before him is a parasite or a dimension walker, calling Demian an heretic and an abomination that must be destroyed. He claims that since Demian has seen what the real world doesn't know exists, he must be killed. With a dark gesture, the man uses his magic to summon the lake water, raising it up into the air, forming a monstrous shape. The water takes the form of a beast, with a head resembling that of a predator, its body made entirely of water. Demian's magical knowledge quickly identifies the creature as a siren mutant, an ancient monster known for drowning its victims. The beast uses a woman's voice to lure people into the lake, but over the years, the creature has lost much of its former shape. The beast's presence is suffocating, and Demian's instincts tell him that the siren mutant is going to attack him. At first, he narrowly dodges the beast's strike, using his agility and skill to avoid its deadly water-based assault. But then, something catches his attention. The siren mutant isn't controlling itself. It's the man who summoned it, directing the beast's attacks with his dark powers. Seeing the power of the siren mutant and understanding its nature, Demian realizes that it's not just a mindless monster. It has a unique way of attacking its victims, keeping them alive long enough to suffer before it drowns them. He realizes the man must have cast some kind of spell on the siren mutant, making it more than just a mere creature, perhaps a sorcery-infused monstrosity. The man had mentioned earlier that the mutant wasn't complete, and now Demian understands what that means. This revelation leads Demian to a conclusion. To defeat this monster, he must sever the connection between the mutant and the man controlling it. In that moment, Demian calls upon his bloodthirsty decaying potion and the wood deer blessing flame, launching both attacks at the siren mutant. As he continues to evade the beast's water-based assaults, he carefully calculates the mutant's movements, anticipating the angles of attack. With pinpoint precision, Demian lands his blows on the mutant, and it begins to decay rapidly from the combined effects of the decaying potion and the flames. However, much to his surprise, the mutant recovers faster than he could have imagined. It isn't dying from the attacks as he expected. Demian realizes that he needs a different strategy if he's going to take this monster down. Without hesitation, he commands Piley to transform into 1,000 forms, distracting both the siren mutant and the man controlling it. Piley's illusions confuse the beast, giving Demian a crucial opening. With a renewed sense of purpose, Demian unleashes a more intense and forceful attack on the mutant, hoping to inflict enough damage this time. While Demian isn't sure whether the mutant will recover again, he presses on, determined to get closer to the man controlling the beast. He knows that if he can attack the man, he will be able to defeat both the siren mutant and its twisted master. The weapon Demian used to attack the man, aiming directly for his face, fails to penetrate, leaving him stunned. The realization dawns on him that the controller of the siren mutant must be far stronger than he anticipated. Before he can process this, a violent rush of wind knocks him back, sending him flying away from the man. At the same time, the siren mutant begins to recover from the second round of attacks. Demian's sensors alert him that his best chance to defeat the mutant is to strike again while it's still in the process of recovering. The man controlling the beast watches Demian struggle, a sadistic smile playing on his face. He mocks Demian, calling him a heretic, questioning whether this is truly all he has. The man's cruel taunts ring in Demian's ears as he searches for a way out of this dangerous situation. As the siren mutant fully recovers, it assumes a new position, preparing to launch its next attack. This time, it emits a deafening sound, one so loud that it threatens to shatter Demian's eardrums. Just as Demian predicted, the siren mutant begins to cast its deadly song, a haunting melody known to drain the will and energy of its listeners. This song is the very weapon that has been used to deal with opponents like him. Piley, in various forms, begins to collapse one by one, their energy drained by the haunting melody. Demian, though still standing, can feel the weight of his mana draining away. Despite the draining effects, Demian steels himself, clinging to the last threads of his resolve. He mutters to himself, promising that he won't die here, not without a fight. His willpower keeps him going. The man controlling the mutant watches with sadistic glee, laughing at Demian's struggle. He mocks him, telling Demian that he is foolish to think he could simply escape the song's effect. Demian's fight is futile, or so the man believes. Then something catches Demian's attention. As the volume of the song begins to slow, he looks toward the mutant and notices something crucial. The absorption process acts as a refueling time, a recovery mechanism for the mutant. Realization dawns on him. The mutant isn't simply a monster. It is feeding off the very specters it has drawn into this realm, and that energy is what is allowing it to recover so rapidly. Demian knows that if he can disrupt this cycle, if he can stop the absorption of the spirits, he might be able to weaken the beast enough to deal a decisive blow. The man continues to taunt Demian, speaking of a world filled with corrupt gods and the coming of a messiah who will end their reign, bringing a new order to the world. Demian, however, refuses to submit and instead brings out a doll with a needle. The man laughs dismissively, unable to comprehend how such a small object could possibly harm him, especially after all the power Demian has already expended. He mocks Demian further, convinced that no adventurer has ever escaped this place alive. But Demian presses the needle into the doll, and to his surprise, the man groans in pain. The doll is a magical voodoo artifact, and as Demian pricks it, the man reacts as though the needle is piercing his own body. The man begins to bleed from the spots where the marks appear, clearly suffering. He senses the man's weakening hold over the mutant siren and tries to use his remaining hand to direct the beast. Demian responds by bending the doll's hand, causing the man's hand to mirror the action in painful synchronicity. The man's pain intensifies, and Demian maintains control. Demian takes a twisted pleasure in the man's suffering. As the effect of the sleep song wears off, Demian commands the Piley to prepare their blowguns, instructing them to use their flame feast technique. He orders them to target both himself and the mutant siren to test their durability. The air is tense with the anticipation of the powerful flames that are about to be unleashed. Kunoichi, still in pursuit of Demian, finally arrives at the same spot where he had previously gotten lost. She too had been hearing the same eerie song that Demian had, and though it clouded her mind, she quickly deduces something is wrong. Determined, she uses her magical skills to break free from the disorienting spell. Refocusing her mind, she promises herself that she will kill him once she finds him. Meanwhile, at the Lake of Oblivion, Demian is still struggling against the recovering mutant siren and its controller, Alistair. Just as Demian commands the Pily to unleash their flame feast, he hears someone leaping toward him. He quickly senses danger and looks back to see Kunoichi, who is already in midair, ready to attack. Despite the chaotic battle around him, Demian is struck by the recognition of her face. He's seen her before. However, he's confused as to why she has shown up now, of all times, while he's already fighting a monster. Kunoichi's attack is swift, but Demian blocks it with a single hand. He questions her sanity, surprised by her reckless behavior. As they briefly exchange words, Kunoichi reveals that she has been anticipating this day for a long time, having come fully prepared to kill him. As they speak, Demian notices that the man controlling the mutant siren, as well as the monster itself, are recovering at an alarming rate. He realizes that Kunoichi is distracting him, and if he doesn't deal with her quickly, he'll lose the chance to finish off his enemies. Deciding to explain the situation, Demian points to the man and the mutant siren, urging Kunoichi to see the danger they pose. He tells her to leave now, or he will have to kill her along with the monster. But Kunoichi is unfazed by the threat of the mutant siren and insists on fighting Demian. She swears that she will kill him, and despite the tension, Demian can't help but note her determination. Kunoichi's first attack comes swiftly, but Demian is able to counter it, striking back and sending her crashing to the ground. However, as this exchange happens, Alistair and the mutant siren fully recover. Alistair, now fully in control, taunts Demian, telling him that for his defiance, he will be punished in a way that will force all unbelievers to change their ways. He reveals his name, Alistair. Demian, having never heard of this man before, realizes that this new information means he is facing an unknown opponent. He mentally calculates his odds of defeating Alistair, determining that his chances of success are no more than 10%. At the same time, Demian realizes that backing down now is not an option. The curse on his body won't allow it, and if he is to rid himself of it, he must confront his enemies head-on. The stakes are high, and Demian knows it's time to unleash his full power. With Alistair and the mutant siren now fully recovered and magnifying their power, Demian sits on the barren ground, holding his small knife, his mind racing for a solution. Meanwhile, Kunoichi slowly stirs, attempting to rise again despite the immense pain and weakness she feels. As she stands, she sees the mutant siren, now fully revitalized, preparing to strike once again. Demian, noticing her, warns her again of the danger the monster poses, advising her to leave while she still has a chance. But Kunoichi, unfazed, insists on her plan to kill him. She is resolute, and no amount of reason from Demian will sway her. As she moves closer to him, her sharp knife drawn, the mutant siren begins to release its deadly song once again. Demian, already prepared, quickly plugs his ears to shield himself from the effects. Kunoichi, however, is caught unprepared. She falls to the ground as the song begins to take hold. Demian, seeing Kunoichi's distress, steels himself, focusing on the task at hand. He checks his remaining mana, calculating how much strength he can muster for the coming fight. The odds are stacked against him, but he has no choice but to push forward. He moves toward Kunoichi, grabbing her weapons, knowing that the added firepower will give him a better chance of taking down the monster. As he picks up her items, she protests, shouting at him to return them, but Demian doesn't respond. His focus is entirely on the battle ahead. He has to give everything he has to defeat the mutant siren. As Demian gathers all the weapons he has, readying himself for his final assault, Alistair mocks him, saying he will do him the favor of killing him quickly. But Demian has other plans. As he gets closer, he reveals that he's been carefully conserving his mana, allowing it to build up to the point where it is now on the verge of bursting. He explains that this will give him the strength he needs to defeat Alistair. In an instant, Demian unleashes the full force of his energy, propelling himself toward the towering mutant siren. With him, he carries a decaying potion, one that is potent enough to cause significant damage, with a capacity of over 45. He pours it onto the mutant's head, and almost immediately, the monster's flesh begins to rot, its power weakening. Seeing this, Demian acts quickly, using the second item he took from Kunoichi, an exploding scroll with a destructive capacity of 200. He activates it, sending a violent explosion tearing through the mutant siren. The creature's HP, a measure of its vitality and energy, plummets from 10 to 2. Kunoichi, still struggling to recover, watches the battle unfold. She's stunned by Demian's ability to execute such precise attacks. Undeterred by the damage inflicted on the mutant siren, Demian shifts his focus to Alistair. He draws his special sashimi knife, its blade imbued with a unique ability, and launches an assault on the man. But despite the force of his strikes, none of his attacks seem to penetrate Alistair's defenses. Frustration builds within him, and his emotions boil over as he screams at Alistair, demanding that he die. In response, Alistair waves his hand, and small parts of the exploded mutant siren begin to reassemble, forming dark tendrils like thick wires. These tendrils surge toward Demian, piercing his body and constricting him. But Demian's mana has reached its peak, and his eyes flash a yellowish-red hue. With renewed strength, he halts one of the dark tendrils and pulls himself closer to Alistair. Then he begins to pummel him, landing punch after punch, shouting that he must beat Alistair to a pulp before leaving him. Alistair, though clearly struggling, tries to retaliate with more of the dark tendrils, but Demian's body has become so resistant that the attacks have no effect. At the same time, Alistair, recognizing that the fight is slipping away from him, prepares for his final act, self-destruction. Demian, sensing the impending explosion, knows he has no choice but to break away from the fight. A second warning blares in his mind, urging him that staying in the blast radius could mean certain death. With no time to waste, he releases Alistair and retreats just as the explosion erupts. Amidst the dust and smoke, Demian stands tall, his aura still radiating with the intensity of his mana, his eyes glowing a dangerous red. He taunts Alistair, believing that he has finally won. He had expected Alistair to self-destruct, but what he did not anticipate was Alistair's ability to leave his physical body behind, emerging as a ghostly form. The dark figure floats in the air, its face a twisted, ethereal mask. Alistair, now in his ghostly state, speaks, acknowledging that he has lost this round. However, he warns Demian that his defeat is not to be celebrated. He vows that this is not the end, and that Demian will soon face something far more dangerous. Alistair's words carry an ominous weight as he declares that, in the future, he will stand at the right hand of the Messiah, watching Demian burn to dust. And with his new position, Alistair promises to spread his message across the world, starting with Demian's downfall. Immediately after his words, he disappears, and Demian is notified that he has successfully killed Alistair's clone and defeated the mutant siren. The zombie-like state that had pushed him to fight relentlessly is finally ending as he feels his human body again. His notification alerts him that he will be knocked out soon because his vital signs are deteriorating, and he is now feeling pain. Groaning from the aftermath of the battle, his quest notification appears, informing him that he has completed the task to clear the swamp forest, discovered traces of heresy, and must now report his status to both Hassan in the guild and Karen for further instructions. As he stretches his hand to ease the pain, he decides not to celebrate, knowing the fight was the toughest he had ever faced. He had risked everything, unsure if he even had a chance before the battle. His curiosity about Alistair grows. How could someone fight so fiercely without a real body? While he and Piley, who has merged with him again, talk, Kunoichi, still lying on the ground, shouts at him to stay away as he moves closer. He jokes, asking Piley what's wrong with her, since she was once so determined that he must kill him before leaving. Piley, now back in its normal position on his shoulder, responds that it doesn't know, asking why he assumes it knows. As he moves closer to Kunoichi again, she jumps to her feet and runs away, shouting "monster" without looking back. She doesn't get far before she falls to the ground, and he catches up with her. He tells her that now that she's seen what kind of person he is, he warns her that if she annoys him again, he will kill her without mercy. He then says he is too tired to pursue her further, so he lets her go. Right before her eyes, he casts a spell, and he and Piley vanish. Kunoichi is left amazed, realizing that he still has her weapons. Before she can react, he is gone. At Terra Kingdom, in the Golden Lark Inn, he appears in his room, but he is surprised to find his master, Karen, there, casually eating a fruit. When he asks Karen why he is there, Karen replies that a good reason brought him, asking if he had met Alistair. He is referring to the mutant siren, also known as the Conquering Rune. He answers that not only did he meet him, but he also had a fierce battle with him. He tells Karen how he nearly lost his life in the fight, asking his master who Alistair really is. Karen explains that the person he just fought with is a member of the self-proclaimed Crucifix Dawn, a group with a mission to raise their boss, the Messiah, to destroy all the false gods. He clarifies that they are more than just an ordinary cult. They are religious fanatics whose beliefs are stronger than anything else. The figure they refer to as the Messiah is actually the Dark God, also known as the Lord of Other Dimensions, the Saint of Evil, the Great Fire, the Six-Eyed Beast, and many other names he cannot fully remember. Karen continues, explaining that all the demonic beasts Demian has encountered were born or created in the absence of Shaka, making them ultimate enemies of Shaka, and in turn, arch-enemies of their own. Demian becomes more confused, recalling that Karen had previously told him that the goodness of light was their enemy. Now, he finds they have more enemies than he had ever known. Karen reassures him not to worry, telling him that by defeating these enemies, he will grow stronger. He rises from his seat and moves closer to Demian, placing a hand on his shoulder as he speaks the blessing of Shaka over him. Immediately, a strange aura passes through his body, and Demian feels an unbearable sensation course through him. This isn't the first time Karen has done something like this, but this time, the experience is painful to endure. Karen urges him not to shout like a baby, reminding him that he is now a man and a capable fighter. The aura that flows through Demian's body feels like the darkness inside him, only stronger. Karen releases his hold on him, but the power continues to circulate through Demian's system. His cries grow louder as the power intensifies, and his notification flashes on screen, confirming that he has successfully cleared the Trace of Heresy quest and acquired EXP. With this, his level rises to level 45. As Demian regains his consciousness, a series of notifications flood his mind. Actions previously deactivated due to his low level are now active. The Oracle has been activated, and the Rune page, along with the Rune of Greed, is unlocked. As the effects settle, a faint green aura radiates from his body, especially his hands. He looks at his weapon storage and is surprised to see the Sephiroth tree. However, Karen interrupts his inspection, explaining that what he is seeing is not what he thinks it is. He clarifies that these are the 7 deadly sins, not just any weapons. These are the servants of Balak and the 7 primordial evils. Karen continues, explaining that unlike Balak, who is trapped in another dimension, the servants exist in this world with the sole purpose of bringing Balak back. The figure Demian fought earlier, Alistair, was one of the 7 apostles of the Crucifix Dawn, empowered by the 7 deadly sins. Demian recalls hearing stories about these figures, and now Karen confirms that his mission is to defeat them one by one, absorbing their power as he goes. Demian asks how he is supposed to defeat or even deal with the goddess of light, let alone the dark forces. Karen tells him that whining won't help. If Demian doesn't seek them out, the 7 apostles will inevitably come for him. Karen warns him that his challenges have only just begun. The man Demian just defeated, Alistair, was merely the tip of the iceberg, and many more will come. In frustration, Demian exclaims. Karen reassures him, telling him that if he masters the energy within him, he'll be able to defeat the Lords of Dimension. However, he cautions Demian to be careful not to let the darkness inside him consume him. As Karen heads out of the room, he tells Demian that his path will only become rougher from here on out. Demian responds sarcastically, expressing gratitude for being dragged into all of this. Karen, understanding the remark, turns back to deal with him. He throws a magic blast at Demian, but Demian effortlessly dodges it. He calls Karen an old man, saying that gone are the days when such an attack would catch him off guard. Seeing that he's improved since they first met, Demian feels a surge of pride. He tells Karen that the energy he gave him is now helping him detect any evil forces, which is why he was able to sense Karen's attack just now. Instead of leaving through the door, Karen jumps out of the window, startling people below. Demian, not at all surprised, has always assumed Karen to be a bit of a weirdo. But despite his eccentricities, Demian feels a sense of happiness, realizing that Karen is starting to act more like a teacher than before. On his way out, Demian notices the gift Karen left behind, a powerful and expensive ring. The ring is connected to a rune page, a thick magical book that can drain both mana and life. However, it also makes the user vastly more powerful in battle. Demian wonders what abilities the apostles might possess if the first ability of the book is so potent. Lost in thought about his chances of defeating them all, he receives a notification message from Minjun. Minjun shouts in surprise as he looks around the unfamiliar surroundings. He's in Jushan, an eastern part of the continent, where everyone around him wears traditional Chinese robes. His confusion grows as he confirms to himself that everything matches what he's seeing on the system. Chinese-style tiles adorn the streets, and names in the language are everywhere. Minjun marvels at the historical and martial arts ambiance of the place, realizing that he has hit the jackpot by being here. It's half a living history museum, half a martial arts ward. On the other end of the call, Demian confirms Minjun's observations. He congratulates him on finding such a place. When Demian asks how Minjun got there, Minjun explains that he helped a man by the dock and, in return, the man gave him a ride on his boat. He then jokingly suggests that perhaps this is a sign from God for him to become a streamer, as the place seems to have a lot to offer. Demian responds calmly, assuring Minjun that he has nothing to worry about, and that he will assist him through everything he needs, no matter what the system throws his way. As soon as the call ends, Minjun can't believe it. He, an AC user, has become the first person to reach the Eastern continent, and he's in awe of how Demian, or Jinsung, knows so much about it. He remembers that Jushin isn't supposed to be discovered for another year. His mind races back to Master Heavenly, who is also from Jushin. Master Heavenly, the master of heavenly lightning, was the one who taught Jinsung how to harness his inner energy and martial arts skills, transforming him from a normal warrior into an incredible combatant. With Master Heavenly's help, Jinsung defeated all the players on the main continent, earning the title of Combat God. Now, however, Demian feels disconnected from his past, considering himself just a voodooist now, almost as if the title and his former achievements are a distant memory. Piley, overhearing Demian's monologue, thinks he's being insulted and begins poking him in his head playfully. This leads to Demian shouting and calling Piley bad names in irritation. Shifting back to the current situation, Minjun finds himself at the Terra Kingdom Adventurer Guild. As he enters, he's greeted warmly by the female officer in charge, who praises him as the ace of the guild. Minjun asks her where Hassan, who is supposed to be there, is. The lady informs him that Hassan is working outside the guild that day, and she will be the one to handle anyone entering the guild during that time. Demian then asks the lady for a quest, explaining that he needs money to cover his expenses. She looks at him, surprised, because she's aware of the last quest he took, which ended with him earning a large sum of money. Demian tells her that he still has enough money for food, but most of his equipment, which he uses for quests, has been damaged. He lists several pieces of equipment that need replacing. He also explains that, according to Karen, he's now on the radar of the Apostles, so there's a high chance he'll encounter one again soon. The lady listens carefully and, seeing that Demian has a genuine reason for needing a quest, opens a drawer beside her and pulls out a quest sheet. She offers it to him, asking him to read it first and decide if he wants to accept it. After carefully reading through the details, Demian's eyes widen in surprise at the difficulty of the quest. He asks the lady about it, and she admits that she knows it's tough, but she doesn't believe there's a quest that someone of his caliber can't handle. As Piley asks Demian what he knows about the place mentioned in the quest, Demian begins explaining. He starts with the name of the location, Veritas Highland. He recognizes it from his previous life on Earth, though in this world, it's known to be home to a wide variety of dangerous monsters, some of the wickedest and most vicious ones. The kingdom near Veritas Highland, called Alkeon Fortress, has been hiring mercenaries constantly, just to keep the monsters from crossing their borders. The lady, acting as a customer service representative for the guild, then informs Demian that the kingdom is offering a reward of 200,000 gold for the quest, including incentives based on how well the adventurer performs. However, she warns him that it will be an incredibly difficult task. Demian leaves the guild, still contemplating whether or not to accept the quest. As he walks down the street, he hears insults being hurled at him from across the way. The voice belongs to a female adventurer he recognizes from the Great Wolf King raid. She approaches him, continuing to insult him and calling him a vicious person. She seems to convince herself that she's not afraid of him. She draws her sword and threatens him, saying that he should be ready to die. Demian, unfazed, warns her that she'll regret her decision. As the fight begins, he dodges all of her strikes, moving gracefully and waiting for the right moment. Eventually, he grows tired of the delay and decides to end the fight. He lands a solid blow on her, sending her crashing to the ground. She lies there, unable to stand, as Demian walks past her without a second glance, leaving her defeated on the street. As Demian approaches the border of Alkeon Fortress, he notices the large and imposing guards standing watch. They eye him carefully, but he's unsure of what to say or do in this situation. It's not until the leader of the 6th platoon, a man with a stern expression, steps forward and asks him if he wants to die. Demian observes the key defenders of Alkeon Fortress, who are easily recognizable by their distinctive attire made from wool, sourced from the animals they hunt. These warriors are known for their heavy, large swords, which they carry with authority as they patrol the streets and the fortress borders. The knight guarding the fortress approaches the woman, calling her by the family name Usraya. He warns her that if she truly is a member of that noble family, she should act accordingly and refrain from breaking the law. If not, she could have been killed on the spot for using a sword, but because she is of royal blood, the knight spares her life. Were she an ordinary citizen, Demian would have witnessed her immediate execution for such an offense. Demian, watching this exchange, is impressed by the power her noble status holds in saving her life. Master Bastard, speaking to her as if she were beneath him, tells the woman that he isn't there for her sake, and that both of them should focus on their respective missions. He tells her that there's no need to fight again, and that it's better they part ways. As he's walking away, the woman tries to respond, but Demian, covering his ears, cuts her off. Later, Demian registers as a mercenary for the kingdom. The armor he's provided is incredibly strong, enchanted to help calm the wearer's body and replenish stamina faster, aiding in longer engagements during battle. The thick material ensures he won't feel the cold, even on the coldest nights. Piley is given similar armor, including a helmet and a cloth for additional protection. While Demian is still admiring the features of his new gear, the Night Crow, a mysterious and dangerous figure from earlier, appears once again. The Night Crow, whose true identity is the eldest son of the Yurkachefa family, has survived a brutal political purge that stripped him of his family's wealth and power. Over the years, he's become a man no one truly recognizes anymore, training relentlessly to hone his skills with the sword. Now a seasoned fighter at level 99, his reputation as a deadly swordsman precedes him. Demian moves closer to the Night Crow, sensing that despite the man's intimidating presence, he appears more honorable and virtuous than the woman he had just fought. Demian feels a sense of respect for him and approaches with a plea. He begs the Night Crow not to forget the countless veteran fighters and warriors who die every day in the fortress. As they make their way outside, they are greeted by Mikhail Sinister, the commander of the fortress. He begins his speech by thanking the mercenaries for reaching the fortress. He acknowledges that many came for personal gain, some to help humanity, and others because they had no other choice. However, he makes it clear that the fortress did not care about their desires before now, calling it a wretched place. Mikhail continues, explaining that the fortress is a place governed by the law of the jungle. Either you are killed, or you kill to survive. He emphasizes that they will face the most brutal 15 days of their lives in their battle against the monsters that constantly threaten the land. This is a land infested by monsters, and it is their duty to protect it because the monsters also seek to reclaim it. Mikhail warns them that this might be the last time the fortress remains standing, and reminds everyone that when fighting on the borders, they are on their own. No one will come to their aid if they are in trouble. He further explains that for now the fortress has the advantage of its elevated position, which makes it harder for the monsters to reach. However, the monsters will still attack. The mercenaries are told to prepare for the Night of the Twin Moons, a night where 2 moons appear in the sky, glowing a bright red. During this time, the monsters grow stronger and more aggressive. To defend against this, the mercenaries will be divided into units to resist the upcoming attacks. Mikhail finishes his address and orders everyone to form separate lines to be assigned their posts. But then, a mercenary, who claims to be a gold-tier adventurer, refuses to follow any orders. He arrogantly states that following orders would be a sign of disrespect to his reputation, shocking the others around him. As the mercenary continues to rant, one of the knights steps forward. This knight is an imposing figure, at least twice the size of an average human. He wears the knight's cloak and carries a large shield. Without a word, the knight strikes the mercenary with a single blow, killing him instantly. The knight's powerful voice echoes through the crowd as he warns everyone that anyone who dares complain or question orders will meet the same fate. The mercenaries fall silent, fearful of the knight's overwhelming strength, and none dare challenge his authority. The Aldeon fortress is divided into 3 specialized units, each with distinct roles and responsibilities. The first is the personnel unit, tasked with handling logistics and structural repairs. The second unit is the Annihilation unit, focused on defending the fortress from the monsters that threaten the walls. They stand firm along the barricades, armed with arrows, swords, and stones. The final unit is the Recon unit, responsible for tracking and identifying the movements of the monsters. This group is known for its strategic intelligence gathering, utilizing special magic and advanced equipment like telescopes to monitor monster activity both inside and outside the fortress. The Recon unit's role is critical as they detect incoming threats and alert the other units to prepare for battle. Because of the nature of their work, they are often on patrol, staying vigilant to monitor the movements of the monsters and avoid any surprises. Master Bastard is assigned to the Recon unit, a task he is not thrilled about. The constant shifts, from morning to night with no time for rest unless someone else takes over his duties, weigh heavily on him. Despite his displeasure, he meets his fellow team members, including Amu Baking, No Wan, Dandyman, Lucky Day, and Love Choco, making them a total of 6 members in the unit. To make matters more interesting, the first woman Master Bastard had encountered upon entering the fortress is also part of this Recon unit. Their past tension is palpable, and the rest of the team begins to wonder if there is some unresolved issue between them. As the tension builds, it looks like they are about to clash again when the leader of the unit enters. The leader introduces himself as Giorno di Yurkachev, a member of the Night Crow. He quickly sets the tone for the group, outlining the mission and expectations for everyone. His words are clear: The unit's goal is to identify the size and combat capabilities of the monsters they are tracking, as this intelligence is crucial for the fortress's defense system. Additionally, they are tasked with checking for any fatalities or damage along their patrol routes to prevent problems during future engagements. Finally, their boss distributes their quest to them. Demian's mind is consumed with the thought that if he can survive until the Twin Moon Night, he will earn a substantial amount of money. If he manages to survive the 2 moons, he will level up and earn more than he does now. Before leaving them, their leader assigns them into 2 pairs, each pair responsible for one of the 3 trenches of the fortress. Unfortunately for Demian, the same lady he had argued with earlier is assigned to his team. Demian is the first to express his displeasure, internally frustrated that he has been stuck with her in his team. His thoughts are filled with resentment as they begin their task, and the tension between them is palpable. The lady, equally irritated, shares similar feelings, and the air is thick with unspoken animosity. Demian reflects on an earlier encounter when he had fought the King Wolf, recalling how she and her team had tried to threaten him and gang up on him. He views it as a betrayal, fueling his anger even further. He believes that, even if it wasn't a misunderstanding, her team would never have been able to defeat him. The resentment between them grows, with Demian believing that she only joined the Crow Order Night due to her family's influence. When suddenly a Vesta Ghoul, a bat-like monster, appears in the distance. Demian immediately recognizes the creature and prepares to engage it. As he prepares to strike, he sees another figure in the sky. The mysterious person moves swiftly, striking down the Vesta Ghoul before Demian can react. One of the members of Demian's group, Amu Baking, unexpectedly appears on the scene, having struck down the Vesta Ghoul that Demian had been preparing to fight. Demian is momentarily confused. Amu Baking was supposed to be in another trench with his own team. Demian wonders what he is doing there, but within seconds, he realizes that Amu Baking is likely trying to impress Ms. After striking down the monster, Amu Baking moves closer to Ms. Hyeon, checking to see if she is okay. She assures him that she is fine, thanking him for coming to her aid. Demian watches this interaction with a scornful gaze, irritated by the scene unfolding before him. He quickly calls their attention to the monster, pointing out that it has not yet died. Since the monster was not killed with one strike, it will mutate and only grow stronger. As expected, the Vesta Ghoul begins to regain its strength, growing taller and more powerful. Both Amu Baking and Ms. Hyeon look alarmed, unsure of how to proceed. Demian, unfazed, tells them to stand aside, as he will handle the monster. He walks toward the creature and begins to explain the proper method to kill a Vesta Ghoul, demonstrating his knowledge and skill. With precise strikes, Demian attacks the monster, first targeting its head, then dislocating its shoulders, and finally severing its Achilles tendon with a sharp weapon. With each calculated movement, the monster's strength fades. After incapacitating the monster, Demian summons his voodoo powers, channeling bloodthirsty energy to deliver a final blow that decapitates the Vesta Ghoul. It dies instantly. Demian looks at both Amu Baking and Ms. Hyeon, stating, "This is how you kill a monster." His action surprises both Amu Baking and Ms. Hyeon, who are taken aback by his confidence and swift manner. However, Demian's instincts suddenly kick in. He moves toward Amu Baking, draws a knife, and presses it against his throat, demanding to know the truth about who he really is. Ms. Hyeon, confused, questions Demian's suspicions, noting that Amu Baking had just helped by defeating the monster. But Demian is not convinced. He wants to know how Amu Baking knew the monster would be coming. Amu Baking, now under pressure, reluctantly explains that he had seen a swamp of the same monsters they just defeated, and one of them had mysteriously left the swamp and was heading toward their position. He claims that he knew Ms. Hyeon was in the area, so he came to protect her. Demian, skeptical of this story, insists that Amu Baking is lying, which causes tension to rise between them. Just as they are about to clash, the plateau leader arrives and intervenes, questioning why they are fighting. He turns to Demian, clearly frustrated, and asks why Demian left his post. He scolds him for being in a position where he shouldn't be, but Demian responds by stating that he was there to help them defeat the monster. However, he implies that Amu Baking may not be entirely trustworthy, suggesting that he could be a spy or even an ally of the monsters, sent to sabotage the fortress. The plateau leader is taken aback by Demian's claim, asking him if he has proof of this. Before Demian can elaborate, Amu Baking pulls out a magical object in the shape of a glowing orb, which he claims was given to him by the monsters or their enemies, intending to use it to defeat Demian. However, Demian is faster. In one swift movement, he flies toward Amu Baking and strikes him down, leaving everyone in shock. Though Amu Baking's intentions may not have been evil, his actions raised suspicion, and the weapon in his hand, a glowing orb, falls to the ground. Despite falling, the orb continues to glow, and the light from it begins to attract more of the monsters. The air becomes charged with tension as the monsters, sensing the orb's magic, begin flying toward their location at a rapid pace. The plateau leader realizes the severity of the situation and quickly orders Demian and Ms. Hyun to run back to the fortress and take cover behind the wall. This battle is too dangerous for just the three of them to fight alone. Hyun asks him what kind of person he is, wondering why so many seem to want to kill him. Demian responds with a wry smile, saying that he doesn't even know the full extent of his enemies. As the group rushes toward the inner border, Demian notices the rate at which the Vesta ghouls are closing in on them. Realizing they won't make it if they continue running, he decides to make a stand. He signals Ms. Hyun to prepare, giving a clear command to wait for his signal. Demian then summons his decaying potion and hurls it toward the advancing monsters. As it splashes onto them, the ghouls explode into a grotesque burst of decaying flesh and bone, many perishing instantly. However, a few ghouls manage to escape the decaying potion's effects. Demian turns to the plateau leader, asking for his assistance. The plateau leader, without hesitation, draws his magical sword and unleashes his wing skill. With precision, he slices through the remaining ghouls, finishing off the few that had survived. The battlefield falls silent, and Demian, Hyun, and the plateau leader receive notifications of leveling up, acknowledging their success in defeating the monsters. Despite their victory, Demian understands the urgency of leaving the area. The noise from the battle will only attract more monsters to the trenches. As they begin to retreat, they encounter an unexpected sight. One of their knights is being slain by a mysterious figure. The man stands with his disciples, holding a ball-like structure that glows eerily. Demian realizes that this man is the one who had sent amoebaking to them, and it becomes clear that his true intention is far more sinister. The man's disciples summon a powerful monster from a portal, and a loud, guttural roar echoes in the distance. A notification flashes, indicating the appearance of a champion monster, a terrifying creature with a massive body and immense strength.